Chapter 4580. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. In the air, a faint but sharp sound of something breaking through the air rang out. 6 light balls instantly shot over and arrived in front of the farmer god cauldron in the blink of an eye. They surrounded the farmer god cauldron in the universe void that was only 200 to 300 million miles away. At this point there were only 4 light balls left in the void a billion miles away. All of them were great beings from the remote antiquity era. 2 of them were at the early stage and the other 2 were at the middle stage. Very quickly, soon as the 6 balls of light shot over, they entered the battlefield. The balls of light of different colors that originally enveloped their bodies dissipated one after another, and were all retracted into their bodies. In the blink of an eye, the 6 powerful beings in the light balls revealed their true forms. The 6 powerful ferocious beasts were all at the late stage of the universe supreme realm. Among them, one was at the peak of the 9th order supreme realm, and it was a double-headed black dragon. Until one was at the 8th order supreme realm, and it was a mixed blood phoenix. The other 4 were all at the 7th order supreme realm. Among them, the red-top snapping turtle had fought with Yixian in the first battle. The other 3 were at the 7th order supreme realm. They were a greenback spike beast, a starry sky fox wolf and a golden bug clan. The 6 supreme ferocious beasts, 4 at the 7th order, 1 at the 8th order, and 1 at the peak of the 9th order, revealed their figures at this moment. They were all tens of millions of miles long, and they surrounded the farmer god cauldron in the universe void that was 200 to 300 million miles away. An invisible and majestic pressure instantly gathered into one. Look! When he saw this, Bao Yuan, who had rushed out from the mouth of the farmer god cauldron that was shrouded in 9-colored fog, stood in the void in front of the cauldron. His eyes gleamed, and an uncontrollable sense of pride instantly surged into his heart. 6 powerful universe supremes. In the past, in Yixian's eyes, existences at this level were like high mountains that he could only look up to. But now, he was going to fight 6 powerful late-stage supreme beings alone. Mo Wuji thought to himself. For some reason, his heart was filled with emotions. He felt as if he was in a dream. This in an instant, Yixian seemed to hear a faint cracking sound in his ears. After being slightly startled, the corner of Bao Yuan's mouth instantly revealed a happy smile. His luck had truly come. Who would have thought that such a sudden sigh would be like an epiphany, causing his state of mind to rise a little again? This was not to be underestimated, because as his state of mind rose, his soul seemed to have undergone a transformation. Even if he didn't experience a hearty battle, Yixian would still be able to immediately go into closed-door cultivation. Furthermore, he was certain that he would be able to successfully break through another level of cultivation. Just this point alone made his decision to stay and fight the final battle worth it. But this was obviously not enough. Since Yixian had decided to stay, then he had to get more out of it. Roar! If you want to fight, then let's fight. I, the Star-Lord, will fight against 6 of you and crush you all. With a shocking roar, the size of Bao Yuan instantly skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached a height of 60 million miles, but the cultivation aura emitted from his body was still only that of an 8th-level universe supreme. Even so, even with the addition of the majestic power of blood and qi in his huge physical body, he was only comparable to a 9th-level universe supreme. But even so, he was still fearless. As soon as the words left his mouth, he had already swung the big-headed black stick on his right shoulder. With a shake of his shoulder, he turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the red-top snapping turtle on the right side of the void at an extremely fast speed. Screech. The red-top snapping turtle secretly complained in his heart. In the previous battle, he didn't particularly go against Bao Yuan, but he didn't know why this guy came to him first. But now that Bao Yuan was here, even if he was depressed, he could only brace himself and fight. Looking up after letting out a screech, the red-top snapping turtle's body instantly turned into a stream of light and went straight toward Bao Yuan. Xiao! However, almost in the next instant, the figure of the violent ape that was charging towards him actually disappeared halfway. This was clearly the rhythm of using the void teleportation. In the next moment, when Bao Yuan's 60 million miles huge body appeared again, he was already more than 100 million miles away to the right rear. He was swinging the big-headed black stick in his hand, and smashing it toward the golden bug race that was more than 10 million miles away. Yixian hated bugs the most. Since there was one here, he naturally couldn't deal with the other opponents first. This bug must be his first target. He was too fast and he used a trick to make a commotion. The golden bug didn't react in time at all. When he realized that the situation was bad, he directly teleported to his side. The starry sky violent ape, which was only over 10 million miles away from him, had already raised its right arm high and swung that ferocious-looking big-headed black stick, smashing it down on the bug's back. Bang! A loud roar rang out in the void. The huge body of the golden insect clan exploded in an instant. Under the terrifying power of this blow, his body had completely exploded into a cloud of blood mist and rapidly spread out. Swish! Without any hesitation, Bao Yuan waved his hand at the first moment, and an incomparably majestic invisible force rolled out from his body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. Just the blood mist that had just spread out swept over in an instant, turning into a golden waterfall of majestic chi and blood. It was like a long rainbow that pierced through the sky and entered his body with incomparable agility. It would be sent into the Shenong cauldron later to start the blood essence condensation. In a short while, in an instant, an opponent was killed. His body exploded and turned into a blood mist that was taken away, causing the number of supreme blood essences in Yi Xian's hands to increase again, reaching a total of 12. However, all of this was only the beginning. In the nearby universe void within 200 to 300 million miles, there were still 5 tempting supreme blood essences waiting for him to harvest. Screech! Thinking of this excitedly, Bao Yuan raised his head and let out a shocking roar. At this moment he was ferocious, and his demonic power was unparalleled. However, the other 5 late-stage supreme masters in the surrounding void were shocked by this scene in an instant. After being stunned for a moment, they exclaimed in horror almost at the same time. What? A golden venerable actually fell? Damn it, this Bao Yuan is too cunning. I saw him rushing toward Lord Crocodile just now. I didn't expect that this was just a feint. The real target is the golden venerable behind him. How long has it been? It's only been a breath, and a rank 7 supreme master has fallen. This kind of power is simply unstoppable. Fellow cultivators, don't be distracted anymore. Bao Yuan's strength has now surpassed ours. If we fight on our own, the final result will only be to be killed by him one by one. Yes, we must unite, cooperate perfectly, and attack him at the same time. Roar! Screech! Screech! Chapter 4581. Roar! Good, I'm going to kill all of you one by one. Seeing the 5 powerful late-stage supreme beings charging at him at the same time, Bao Yuan was not afraid at all. Instead, he raised his head and let out an earth-shattering roar. As soon as his voice was heard, he disappeared instantly. In the blink of an eye, he was behind one of the 5 late-stage supreme beings. This time he was targeting the greenback hedgehog, one of the 5 supreme beings. This guy's cultivation level was only at the 7th level supreme being. To the current Yi Xian, he was like an ant that could be dealt with by the big-headed black cudgel. Without hesitation, Bao Yuan swung the cudgel in his hand and smashed it fiercely. Bang! A huge roar resounded in the void. The greenback hedgehog's huge body exploded in an instant. Under the terrifying power of this blow, his body completely exploded into a cloud of blood mist and rapidly spread out. Shio! Almost at the same time, Bao Yuan waved his hand at the first moment, and an incomparably majestic invisible force rolled out from his body and enveloped a radius of millions of miles. The blood mist that had just spread out swept over in an instant and turned into a majestic waterfall of chi and blood. It was like a long rainbow that pierced through the sky and entered his body nimbly. It would be sent into the Shenong cauldron later to start the blood essence condensation. Another supreme being blood essence had been obtained. Now there were only 4 late-stage supreme beings who were still fighting around him. In just a few breaths, 1/3 of them were gone. This result caught the other 4 late-stage supreme beings off guard. Under the shock and fear in their hearts, the 4 huge figures that were rushing over paused in the void at the same time. This was completely a subconscious action, but it was also because of this action that Bao Yuan found another opportunity. Shio! With a shake of his shoulders, Bao Yuan rushed toward the double-headed black dragon. This was clearly the rhythm of locking the 3rd target on him. Seeing this scene, The other three late-stage supreme beings were subconsciously relieved. In their opinion, at least they were temporarily safe. However, an accident happened. Hong! Just as he arrived at the double-headed black dragon's side, the violent ape raised the big-headed black stick high up in the air. Just as he was about to swing it down, the big-headed black stick strangely disappeared in an instant. After losing the big-headed black club, the violent ape changed its swing into a punch. A terrifying fist that was even larger than a meteor smashed towards the side of the double-headed black dragon. Roar. After all, this guy was a half-step grand cultivator. His speed was extremely fast and his reaction speed was also extremely shocking. He raised his head and roared, easily dodging the attack. Boom! Almost at the same time, in another direction, an earth-shattering roar sounded. Turning his head to look, the big-headed black stick that had just disappeared from the violent ape's hand had actually strangely appeared in that direction. It fiercely swung down, smashing onto the back of the starry sky fox wolf. Bang! This blow was heavy and fierce, and the sound of the explosion shook the heavens. The starry sky fox wolf's huge body exploded in an instant. In the blink of an eye, under the terrifying power of this blow, his body completely exploded into a cloud of blood mist and rapidly spread out. Swish! Without hesitation, the violent ape immediately waved its hand, and an incomparably majestic and invisible force rolled out from its body, enveloping a radius of tens of thousands of miles. In the blink of an eye, the blood mist that had just spread out swept over, transforming into a majestic waterfall of blood and chi. Like a rainbow piercing through the sky, it drilled into the body with incomparable agility, leaving it for the Shinnon cauldron to begin the blood essence refinement. All of this took a long time to describe, but it happened in a single breath. In the time it took to take a breath, the violent ape had killed another late-stage sovereign and obtained another precious sovereign blood essence. In the blink of an eye, of the 6 powerful late-stage sovereigns, only the double-headed black dragon, the mixed blood phoenix, and the pill-top snapping turtle were left. Now when these 3 fellows saw how powerful the violent ape was, especially the big-headed black stick in its hand, it was like a killing stick. As long as they were touched by it, their bodies would instantly explode and they would die. The 3 fellows were terrified to the extreme. At this moment, they no longer had the slightest confidence in joining forces to capture the violent ape, and even felt that it was just an extravagant hope. Although this situation was indeed a little strange, time was too short, and there was no time for them to think too much. Right now, the most important thing for these 3 fellows was to quickly withdraw. Otherwise, today's rhythm was clearly the rhythm of annihilation. Roar! 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 With this thought, the 3 powerful late-stage sovereigns instantly raised their heads and roared. Without hesitation, they each chose a direction and began to escape. The one with the fastest speed was none other than the double-headed black dragon with the strongest cultivation. However, he was calm and unruffled, as if he was not too worried that the violent ape could kill him like the 3 7th-stage sovereigns. In fact, with Bao Yuan's current battle prowess that was comparable to a 9th-order venerable on the surface, even if he wielded the big-headed black stick, it would be hard for him to kill a 9th-order venerable who was prepared for it in one strike. But this did not matter. The double-headed black dragon was prepared to be the last to make a move. At that time, even if he used a part of his hidden strength, it would not matter. Because after killing the last double-headed black dragon, it was time for him to withdraw and leave. At this moment, Yi Xian did not pay attention to the double-headed black dragon at all. When he saw that these 3 fellows wanted to escape, he rushed toward the mixed blood phoenix at the first moment. Whoosh! At the same time, the big-headed black stick that had just returned to his hand disappeared again with a faint sound of breaking through the air. At this moment, the double-headed black dragon and the red-headed crocodile turtle felt their scalps suddenly go numb. In an instant, all of them raised their vigilance to the extreme because they did not know if the big-headed black stick that had mysteriously disappeared would reappear on top of their heads. Boom! As soon as this thought appeared, the big-headed black stick had already appeared and smashed at the back of the red-headed crocodile turtle's head. This attack was too sudden. In an instant, the explosion was earth-shattering. The huge body of the crocodile turtle, which was tens of thousands of miles long, exploded in an instant. It suddenly exploded. Under the terrifying power of this attack, Its body completely exploded into a bloody mist in the blink of an eye and rapidly spread out. Whoosh! The violent ape waved its hand, and a majestic invisible force rolled out from its body, enveloping a radius of tens of thousands of miles. The bloody mist that had just spread out swept over. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a majestic waterfall of blood and chi. It was like a long rainbow that pierced through the sky. It rushed into the body with incomparable agility. It would be sent into the Shenong cauldron later to start the blood essence condensation. Roar! The violent ape raised its head and let out a roar of joy. At this time, a punch had already been thrown out. Bang! Chapter 4582. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the violent ape's fist landed on the right wing of the mixed-blood phoenix, causing its body to suddenly stop. Immediately after, an earth-shattering explosion rang out. The huge body of the mixed-blood phoenix, which was tens of thousands of miles long, had already exploded with a loud bang. Although the violent ape did not use the big-headed black stick in this attack, the moment the giant fist touched the mixed-blood phoenix, it released some of the power that had been hidden in its body and rushed into the mixed-blood phoenix's body. There was no suspense in this result. The huge body of the mixed-blood phoenix, under the terrifying power of this attack, completely exploded into a bloody mist and rapidly spread out. Swish! The violent ape raised its hand, and the big-headed black stick turned into a weak black light that shot into its hand. At the same time, an incomparably majestic and invisible force rolled out from the violent ape's body, enveloping an area of 10 million miles. The bloody mist that the mixed-blood phoenix had just spread out was instantly swept up, turning into a majestic waterfall of chi and blood. Like a rainbow piercing through the sky, it nimbly entered the violent ape's body and disappeared. Roar! At this moment, the double-headed black dragon suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. His body's momentum instantly increased by 30% as he raised his head and let out an incomparably clear dragon roar. You won't be able to escape. A cold light flashed in the violent ape's eyes. Yi Xian's voice came out, and after tightening the grip on the big-headed black stick in his hand, his body flashed and he immediately disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on the right side of the double-headed black dragon. Without any hesitation, he raised the big-headed black stick high above his head and directly smashed it down at the double-headed black dragon. Roar! At this moment, on the verge of life and death, the double-headed black dragon once again let out a sorrowful cry. Bam! With an earth-shattering explosion, one of the two huge heads of the double-headed black dragon instantly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that spread out. There's actually such a move? Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment, but he did not hesitate at all and immediately made his move. Swish! As the violent ape waved its hand, an incomparably majestic and invisible force rolled out from its body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. The bloody mist that had just spread out swept over, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a majestic waterfall of chi and blood, like a rainbow that pierced through the sky, and entered the body with incomparable agility. The reason was that the bloody mist formed by the explosion of this head was also a part of the double-headed black dragon's body. Condensing a vicious beast's blood essence required all the blood mist formed after the vicious beast's body exploded as the blood essence material. It was fine to lose a little bit, but if too much was lost, it was very likely that the blood essence would not be successfully condensed. Even if it was incomplete, the of the bloods of the blood, it would still the violent the of the blood. However, what had exploded in front of him was one of the heads of the double-headed black dragon. The blood mist in this part was definitely not as simple as a strand or a half. If it was allowed to spread out and completely disperse, then even if it killed the double-headed black dragon, this supreme blood essence would not be able to. At this moment, after putting away the bloody mist in half a breath, the violent ape's figure flashed again. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from where it was. Through teleportation, it rushed towards the double-headed black dragon that was fleeing to the right. The previous strike had almost hit the back of the double-headed black dragon. It was precisely at this critical juncture of life and death that the twin-headed black dragon endured the pain and detonated one of its heads, allowing its main body to escape. However, it was only able to teleport over 100 million kilometers away in an instant. Now the violent ape rushed over again, and in an instant it was already on his left side. One head, one life? Unfortunately, you are not a nine-headed bird. Today, this Star Lord wants to see if you dare to explode your last head. Boom! As Yi Xian's divine sense voice sounded, the big-headed black stick on his shoulder suddenly swung out, swung high above his head, and then smashed down fiercely. Een! The double-headed black dragon trembled all over as it raised its head and let out a sorrowful cry. Then its tail suddenly exploded with a bang. A cloud of bloody mist spread out, and the double-headed black dragon moved horizontally again. In an instant, it had crossed hundreds of millions of miles, but it was once again forced by the violent ape to the position where it had exploded its head. You can still come? Next time, the Star Lord wants to see what else you can explode. This result surprised Yi Xian, but he did not hesitate. With a wave of his hand, an incomparably majestic and invisible force rolled out from his body, enveloping a radius of thousands of miles. The bloody mist swept over in an instant, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a majestic waterfall of qi and blood. It was like a rainbow that pierced through the sky and entered his body with incomparable agility. Come on, let this Star Lord see what else you can explode this time. After doing all this, the violent ape tightened its grip on the big-headed black stick in its hand, and in a flash it chased after it again. In just a breath, the violent ape had already arrived behind the double-headed black dragon. At this time, the double-headed black dragon was no longer as mighty as before. Only one of the two ferocious heads was left, and at the base of the other head, there was only a huge bloody hole. It looked incomparably ferocious, and it was a ghastly sight. What was even more shocking was its tail. Almost 1/5 of its body had exploded along with it. It looked as if a part of its body had been cut off, and it was in an extremely sorry state. You don't have a chance. As soon as his figure appeared, the violent ape roared again. The big-headed black stick on its shoulder was raised high above its head and smashed down fiercely. Screech! This time what came out of the double-headed black dragon's mouth was no longer a dragon's roar, but a sharp screech filled with unwillingness and mournfulness. Because he had already completely given up hope, realizing that in the next moment, it might be the moment of his death. Bam! Without any suspense, the big-headed black stick ruthlessly smashed down, landing in the middle of the double-headed black dragon's back. This blow was heavy and fierce, and the sound of the explosion was earth-shattering. The double-headed black dragon's huge body, which was already less than 10 million miles long, had already exploded in an instant. His body, under the terrifying power of this blow, completely exploded into a cloud of blood mist in the blink of an eye, rapidly spreading out. Whoosh! With his heart suddenly relieved, the violent ape did not hesitate at all. He waved his hand at the first moment, and an incomparably majestic invisible force rolled out from his body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. In the blink of an eye, the blood mist that had just spread out swept over, turning into a majestic waterfall of qi and blood, like a long rainbow that pierced through the sky, and entered his body with incomparable agility. At this point, the 6 powerful late-stage sovereigns had all fallen, and the number of sovereign blood essences in Yi Xian's hands had skyrocketed to 17 today. All of this happened too quickly. From the beginning of this great battle to now, only a dozen breaths of time had passed. Chapter 4583. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion was heard. The huge body of the double-headed black dragon exploded into a cloud of blood mist, which was absorbed by the violent ape with a wave of his hand. Only a dozen breaths had passed since the start of the battle. A dozen breaths was enough for the powerful beings of the primordial era to do many things. However, the powerful beings of the primordial era who were hiding in the 4 light balls a billion miles away didn't make a move. It was actually a freak combination of factors that led to this. When the first late-stage Supreme Being was killed, they thought it was just an accident and didn't take it seriously. There wasn't a big difference between 6 late-stage Supreme Beings and 5 late-stage Supreme Beings to capture the violent ape. However, when the second late-stage Supreme Being was killed, the 4 powerful beings of the primordial era finally felt that something was wrong. Before they could react, the 3rd and 4th late-stage 9 Heaven Supremes were killed one after another in an instant. This series of changes was too shocking and happened too fast. The 4 powerful beings of the primordial era who were hiding in the 4 light balls couldn't react at all. However, at this moment the 5th Supreme Being, which was the mixed blood phoenix, was killed. This shocked them again. The four powerful beings of the primordial era were so shocked that they thought they were in a dream. None of this was real. Then, 2 breaths later, when they were hesitating whether to make a move, the double-headed black dragon was killed by the violent ape. This scene once again shocked the 4 primordial great beings that were hibernating in the light. Their minds shook violently, and even the light that shrouded them shook slightly. After half an instant, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The 4 powerful beings of the primordial era who were hiding in the light balls finally came back to their senses at this moment and sent out their divine consciousness voices. Damn it! What happened? Why did this happen? It's only been a dozen breaths. 6 powerful universe supreme beings, including one at the 8th level and one at the peak of the 9th level, were all killed. The most important thing is that the violent ape is only at the 8th level of this realm. This doesn't make sense. What should we do now? Should we just let him go on like this? This won't do. I can't restrain myself any longer. This battle isn't an arranged battle, nor is it interfering with the arranged battle because all of his opponents have perished. So, even if I make a move, it won't be related to the Tao oath we made earlier. If that's the case, that's fine too. Yakzun is a stage 2 almighty. No matter how heaven-defying this ape is, it can only barely exchange a few blows with a stage 1 almighty. With you around, you can definitely hold him back. We'll stay put for now in case the violent ape teleport back to Farmer God's treasured cauldron. Yak Master, try to lure him away from Farmer God's cauldron, as long as he's more than 1 billion miles away from the cauldron. And, of the 4 supreme beings of the primordial era, of the 4 of us. These voices were not hidden at first, but when it came to the plan, it became a private communication. At this moment, when the communication was over, one of the 4 balls of light instantly shot forward. The other 3 balls of light, in order to reassure the violent ape, even subconsciously retreated 1 billion miles or so. In this way, they were 2 billion miles away from the Farmer God's treasured cauldron, which was surrounded in the center of the formation. It was enough for Yak Master to lure the violent ape to an area 1 billion miles away from the cauldron, Rumble. After all, he was a supreme being of the primordial era. His speed was naturally very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was only 200 million miles away from the violent ape. Not only was his speed fast, but his power was also shocking. It could be said that rumbling thunder could be heard in the void. At this moment, the violent ape had just killed the double-headed black dragon and had not returned to the Farmer God's treasured cauldron. It was about 100 million miles away from the cauldron. Bao Yuan was stunned for a moment when he saw the first ball of light rumbling over, while the other 3 balls of light had retreated another 1 billion miles. Now they were already 2 billion miles away from Farmer God's treasured cauldron. Then a bright light flashed through his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. Originally, according to Yixian's plan, after killing the 6 supreme beings of the late stage, he would immediately withdraw and leave this place. But now, it only took him 12 breaths to kill the 6 supreme beings of the late stage. It was almost negligible. Although now he could confirm that they did send a signal to invite the 2 supreme beings of the early stage to deal with him. But they had said before that the 2 supreme beings of the early stage would need at least 2 days to arrive. The credibility of this was very high. In Yixian's opinion, the reason why they suddenly changed their minds and decided to send out 6 late-stage sovereigns to fight the final battle with him was clearly because they were unwilling and didn't want to distribute the benefits to the 2 early-stage primordial sovereigns that were about to arrive. So they gritted their teeth and prepared for the last battle. Since that was the case, the 2 supreme beings of the early stage would not be able to arrive in a short time. Otherwise, they would not have the time to make such a final struggle. If that was the case, Yixian would not be in a hurry to leave immediately. Moreover, Yixian's strength could reach the 2nd level of the primordial era under the 9th transformation of the demonic ape 9 transformations bloodline. If he counted the power of the blood energy in his 60 million mile long body, Yixian's strength would be at the peak of the primordial era. His battle strength would be comparable to the 3rd level of the primordial era. It was impossible for him to fight against the 2 supreme beings of the early stage of the primordial era. But it was not impossible for him to escape as long as he saw the opportunity. In other words, even if the 2 supreme beings of the early stage arrived, Yixian would not be in the same awkward situation as before. But of course, he would not take the risk to fight the two supreme beings of the primordial era head-on. But it was still very tempting to try and see if he could kill another supreme being of the primordial era before they arrived. More importantly, the aura emitted from the ball of light that was rumbling toward him was only at the second level of the primordial era. It was one level weaker than Yixian's current peak battle strength. This was clearly delivering itself to him. It was not Yixian's style to let it go so easily. Chapter 4584. Hong. Long. 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 Although I am not willing to admit it, this is the truth. You are already invincible in the supreme realm. Along with the rumbling sound, a voice of divine consciousness was transmitted from within the ball of light. It was extremely low and deep, and there was no hint of anger being emitted from it. However, there was an invisible sense of might and ferocity. No Universe Supreme Master is a match for you anymore. The current you is already able to fight against a powerful being from the primordial era. I am merely at the initial stage of this realm, so I am not bullying you. Do you still dare to fight me? Hong. Long. Long. As the last sentence was uttered, the ball of light that enveloped this powerful being from the primordial era completely dissipated and entered his body. Ching. In an instant, a gigantic blood-devouring star yak appeared in the void. Compared to the raging star ape, it was only slightly smaller. It was a total of more than 40 million miles. Other than the golden godly dragon, the giant void tortoise, and the other beings from the primordial era, this was the largest ferocious star beast that Yixian had ever seen in the current starry sky. Just as the other party had said, the aura of cultivation emitted from its body was that of a second-level powerful being from the primordial era, and it was not very vigorous. Judging from this point, this blood-devouring star yak should have just entered the second level of the primordial era not too long ago. At most, it was not more than 500 years. It could be considered as a powerful being from the primordial era, who had just entered the second level of the primordial era. Although I am only at the 8th level of the Universe Supreme Master, in terms of actual combat power, I am indeed on par with a powerful being from the primordial era. Standing in the void of the universe 200 million miles away, the raging star ape held the big-headed black stick in his right hand and carried it on his right shoulder. He was in a leisurely and insufferably powerful posture. He glanced sideways at the blood-devouring star yak as if it was nothing. He snorted coldly and immediately warned, "Yak, do you really want to fight with me? To tell you the truth, my true strength is already at the third order of the primordial era. You are only at the second order. If you fight with me, you will be in for a hard time." After saying that, Bao Yuan waved his hand. Go. Seeing that it was not easy for you to reach the primordial almighty realm, I, the Star Lord, will be merciful today and kindly remind you. Don't kill anymore. Go back to where you came from and get lost immediately. These words were infuriating. How could an 8th level Universe Supreme be so merciful to a 2nd level primordial great being? He would not kill him today, and he would just ask him to get lost and go back to where he came from. He'd seen arrogant people before, but he'd never seen such an arrogant person. If it was any other existence, they would probably go mad from anger on the spot and would definitely go berserk. But this bloodthirsty yak had always been known for its calm temperament. After hearing Yixian's words, its aura didn't fluctuate in the slightest. It was still as calm as ever. But the voice of his divine sense quickly sounded after Bao Yuan's words were spoken. "Bao Yuan, it's useless. Such words can't provoke me. Don't waste your time. If you don't dare to fight, it doesn't matter. The four of us can just share a part of the benefits. We just need to trap you for 2 more days. By then, 2 powerful primordial supreme beings at the initial stage will naturally come and get rid of you. Anyway, those 8 pieces of trash have all fallen, and their original share has been emptied. Even if we share a part of it, it won't affect the 4 of us too much. It's not unacceptable. Hey, you don't appreciate my kindness, do you?" Without waiting for the blood-devouring star yak to finish speaking, the violent ape had already interrupted him, and it said with a disdainful expression, "Since it's like this, then bring it on. Since you're courting death, this Star Master will fulfill your wish and kill you in passing. In any case, it doesn't take much effort." Roar. This time the bloodthirsty yak didn't respond. It raised its head and roared angrily. Then it tilted its head, shook its 4 hooves and rushed toward Yixian. Boom! Rumble. Gotcha. This was a second-stage Supreme Being. It was too powerful. At this moment it had fully activated the power in its body. It galloped through the void, and the two huge horns on its head were constantly flickering with faint black light. Not only were the two huge horns hard, but they were also incomparably sharp. At this moment, when the bloodthirsty star yak galloped over at full speed, it actually tore through the void along the way, and the rumbling of thunder resounded. It was accompanied by the crisp sound of ripping silk. Good. This was the primordial void. The power of the void law was extremely strong. At this moment, the void that was torn apart by the blood-devouring starry yak dashed over was mended in an instant and restored in an instant after it passed through. Its power is not bad. A primordial supreme being is indeed a primordial supreme being. In the end, it can't be compared to a supreme being of the universe. When he saw this scene, Yixian was dazzled, and he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. At this moment, after the previous breakthrough, although he already possessed a terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a third-stage supreme being, this strength had always been suppressed and concealed by him, and he had never used it at all. Even when he fought against 6 supreme beings by himself and successively killed 6 supreme beings in a short period of a dozen breaths, Yixian had only secretly used a small portion of his suppressed battle strength. But now all of this finally didn't have to continue anymore. Facing this powerful second-stage supreme being, if Yixian continued to conceal his cultivation and suppress his strength, then it would simply be no different from courting death. In other words, at this moment he was finally able to fully display his peak combat strength. This was a terrifying strength that was comparable to a third-step supreme expert. Yixian had never felt it before, but now it was about to erupt in full force. Roar! His head let out a wild roar. At this moment, Yixian's heart was agitated to the extreme. Immediately after, a divine sense voice that revealed boundless disdain instantly sounded out. Yak, in this battle you will definitely die. Xiao? As soon as the voice fell, the terrifying figure of the violent ape, which was 60 million miles long, had already turned into a stream of light in an instant, charging straight at the blood-devouring star yak that was colliding head-on. In an instant, Yixian no longer concealed his cultivation aura. With a thought, he completely released it. Previously, the cultivation aura that emanated from his body was only that of an 8th-stage supreme being. Of course, none of the 4 supreme beings from the primordial era who were still here now treated him as a true supreme being from the primordial era. In their opinion, this violent ape's true battle strength had already reached the level of a supreme being from the primordial era, who had just entered the 1st stage. But that's all. Boom! A deep rumble of thunder sounded, and the cultivation aura that emanated from the violent ape's body skyrocketed at this moment. In the blink of an eye, it had already reached the 2nd stage of the primordial era, and it was much more vigorous than the blood-devouring star yak that Feng Zhang had collided head-on with earlier. Then, counting the 1st stage enhancement of the majestic power of blood and qi in his physical body, the current violent ape's battle strength was comparable to that of a 3rd-stage supreme being. Boom! Chapter 4585. The figure of the ferocious ape turned into a ray of light and shot out. Along the way, it surged out all the cultivation strength that it had been suppressing and concealing in its body. Right. The heart of the blood-devouring star yak that was crashing over jumped, and it subconsciously wanted to stop its body at this moment. Its scalp went numb, and it instantly understood everything. It turned out that this ferocious ape had been concealing its cultivation all along. Its strength had actually reached the 2nd stage almighty, and it had the combat strength of a 3rd stage almighty. This was simply terrifying at this moment. A huge sense of crisis descended and shrouded the entire body of the blood-devouring star yak. His rapidly moving figure instantly stopped in the void. Unfortunately, everything was already too late. The distance between the two was not far to begin with. It was only 200 million miles. Now that both of them had launched an extremely fast charge, they had almost closed in a flash. At this moment, even if the blood-devouring Stariak's body had stopped abruptly, the ferocious ape was already in front of it. Boom! 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 Ow! Along with the movement of the big-headed black stick, the void let out a low rolling thunder sound. Almost at the same instant, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The big-headed black stick ruthlessly smashed on the head of the blood-devouring star yak. After all, he was a second-stage almighty. This blow was not able to directly kill him. However, a huge blood bump the size of a star swelled out on his head. It was a ghastly sight. His figure was also instantly sent flying while howling in pain. All of this happened too quickly. 2 billion miles away. The three powerful primordial almighties that were hibernating in the light clusters to watch the battle were completely unable to react even though they had witnessed everything with their own eyes. After a full 2 seconds, unprecedented exclamations of shock and astonishment came from the three light clusters one after another. What happened? The great yak was actually sent flying by a single stick? Second stage almighty. The aura of the ferocious ape's body has changed. It has already become a second stage almighty. If we include the first stage enhancement of the boundless vitality in his huge body, his current combat strength is comparable to a third stage almighty. Damn it, we've been tricked. This ferocious ape is too cunning. It's actually been breaking through all along and concealing its cultivation all along. We've been tricked. Stage 3 almighty? What should he do? Yakzun is no match for him. Hurry up and think of a solution. Should we make a move? Roar. At the same time, an earth-shaking roar came from the mouth of the fierce ape in the battlefield in the void 2 billion miles away. This Star Lord has just said that you won't be able to escape today. Rumble. Whoosh. As soon as his voice fell, the huge body of the violent starry sky ape suddenly collapsed, turning into a pool of blood that spread out. As it expanded with the wind, it covered a distance of 1 billion miles in an instant. It just so happened to absorb the blood-devouring starry sky yak that was flying backwards into this sea of blood. Roar! Roar! 3. In the next moment, from 3 different directions of this vast sea of blood, earth-shattering roars and violent howls rang out. Then, from the shocking and boundless sea of blood, 3 huge figures instantly rose from the ground. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient ape demons. They were the bodies of flesh and blood, which was the violent starry sky ape. As for the skeleton body, there was no flesh and blood. It was just a purple-gold skeleton that exuded an endless ferocious aura. It was incomparably ferocious. There was a black fog body. Although it was also in the form of a violent ape, its physical body was a cloud of black fog. Even its pair of eyes were only 2 clouds of purple light, which looked extremely strange. In an instant, 3 blood sea clones were instantly condensed. The cultivation aura that emanated from their bodies were all stage 2 primordial era almighty figures. But because these 3 blood sea clones were all 60 million miles in size, like the largest giant star, the power of blood in such a terrifying physical body was too majestic. It directly caused their true battle strength to soar by 1 level. In other words, the 3 blood sea clones that were condensed in an instant all had the battle strength of a stage 3 primordial era almighty figure. Any one of them was not weaker than the blood-devouring starry sky yak. No. Blood-devouring starry sky ape, you're bullying me with numbers. Trapped in the boundless blood sea, the blood-devouring starry sky yak's original momentum of shooting out came to an abrupt stop. It was as if it had fallen into a sticky swamp, and it was unable to move half a step. 1. An extremely strong sense of life and death crisis assaulted its heart at this moment, causing the blood-devouring starry sky yak to raise its head and let out a shocking roar. Then it transmitted a voice with its divine sense. Bullying me with numbers? Haven't you done this kind of thing before? Don't forget, this starry sky master fought against 6 of your late-stage almighty figures just now. Why didn't you say such words at that time? Faced with this kind of accusation, Yixian was extremely disdainful. His voice with his divine sense revealed endless ridicule. Moreover, the starry sky master was trapped here by all of you this time. Could it be that it wasn't because you had more people? Now that you're at death's door, you actually said such words to this starry sky master. Yak, your realization came too late. Roar. Screech rumble. After saying that, Yixian did not say anything else. The 3 blood sea clones raised their heads and roared fiercely at the same time. Roar. At the same time, the skeleton and black fog clones waved their fists and blasted toward the blood-devouring starry sky yak that was trapped in the center. As for the ferocious ape, it also raised the big-headed black club on its shoulder. Without the slightest hesitation, It directly smashed toward the blood-devouring starry sky yak that was in the center of the blood sea in front of it. Bang! 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 3. A huge roar resounded from the void. The power of this attack was too terrifying. The fists of the skeleton clone and the black fog clone all smashed onto the blood-devouring starry sky yak's body, emitting a shocking explosion. However, the truly fatal blow was the big-headed black club that the ferocious ape wielded. 1. The club head that was as huge as a small star accurately landed on the back of the blood-devouring starry sky yak's head. Boundless and terrifying power instantly surged in, stirring up everything in its brain into a bloody mess. Tight! Following that, with a bang, the blood-devouring starry sky yak's huge body exploded in an instant. The power was too terrifying. The entire body that was over 40 million miles long completely exploded into a cloud of blood mist that rapidly spread out. Swish! When the blood mist completely spread out, the ferocious ape had already waved its hand at the first moment. An incomparably majestic and invisible force swept out from its body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. Just as the blood mist that was about to spread out swept over in an instant, transforming into a majestic waterfall of chi and blood. It was like a rainbow that pierced through the sky and nimbly drilled into the ferocious ape's body. Hua! Walala! A few at the same time, after the successful attack, the skeleton clone and the black fog clone directly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that fell into the blood sea beneath their feet. They merged into it and disappeared. Tight! Chapter 4586. In the blink of an eye, the dust of this battle had settled. A powerful second-stage mighty figure had fallen just like that. His body had exploded into a cloud of blood mist and was absorbed into the body of the raging ape. This from beginning to end, this battle had not even lasted 10 breaths. The reason why Xian could successfully kill this blood-devouring star yak was to a certain extent a fluke factor. Even Supreme Zhou was not easy to kill, let alone a primordial mighty figure. Although this sedan-devouring star yak's cultivation was only at the second stage of this realm, Yi Xian had summoned the Blood Sea and used the Blood Sea secret technique to condense 3 Blood Sea clones, all of which had the battle prowess of a third-stage mighty figure. However, if it wasn't for the fact that all of this happened too suddenly and the already dead blood-devouring astral yak was simply caught off guard and didn't have the time to react, even if the 3 Blood Sea doppelgangers of the third level of the Almighty attacked at the same time, they might not have been able to kill it so easily now. With the fall of this blood-devouring star yak, apart from the 17 supreme blood essences in Yi Xian's hands, there was one more blood essence of a mighty figure. The blood essence of a mighty figure was used to refine a level 29 treasure pill. A level 29 treasure pill could allow a primordial mighty figure to smoothly break through to the supreme primordial realm from the 9th stage of the primordial realm. This was an existence that was second only to the primeval heaven's eye and the headless infant corpse. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the second most powerful existence in the universe since ancient times. 9 Therefore, according to Yi Xian's speculation, this level 29 treasure pill was very likely the limit. The level 30 treasure pill might not even exist. That is, even if it did exist, it was impossible to refine it using his current method. Of course, even if it was a level 29 treasure pill, Yi Xian had not even deduced the perfect pill formula yet. However, before that, to be able to obtain a precious treasure pill of a mighty figure was definitely a joyous thing for him. The blood essence of a mighty figure could only be refined by killing a mighty figure of the primordial era, and using the majestic chi and blood formed after the body exploded. Therefore, every single almighty being's blood essence was definitely not easy to obtain. Refining a single level 29 pill would require at least 5 almighty beings' blood essences. Before Xianneng had even deduced the perfect pill formula, he had already collected a mighty figure's blood essence. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. He had never thought about it before, nor did he dare to think about it at this moment. Along with the annihilation of this bloodthirsty star yak, a cold light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes, and he instantly turned around to look at those 3 balls of light that were 2 billion kilometers away in space. Almost at the same time, cries of astonishment rang out from within the 3 balls of light. What? Was Yak Zun dead? How is this possible? How long has it been? In just a few short moments, before we could decide whether or not to make a move, the Yak sovereign had already fallen. It's over. There's no hope in today's battle. Bao Yuan has the Blood Sea secret technique. When he activates the power of his clones, he can form 3 Blood Sea clones in an instant. Each one has the combat strength of a level 3 Almighty. But now there are only 3 of us left. Even if we attack together, it will only be a bloody battle with him. We won't have the slightest advantage over him. Originally, there was no suspense in the situation of confinement, but it was actually so quietly and unknowingly broken. 2 months, in just 2 short months, the situation has undergone such a shocking change. It's like the difference between heaven and earth. Nearly 2 months ago, this Bao Yuan was in a situation of certain death. It was only a matter of time. Yet now, 12 of us powerful existences came together. Yet, one after another, 9 of us were killed by him. Now only the 3 of us remain. Bao Yuan, on the other hand, became stronger and stronger during this process. Now he already has the combat strength to fight the 3 of us by himself. Although he can't win, there's no worry of losing. How can we endure this? I was careless, I was really careless. No matter what, we can't give up just like that. At least now, the true battle strength and foundation of the Bao Yuan have been completely exposed. There's no possibility of any accidents happening. That's right, if we don't make a move, the Bao Yuan will definitely leave. He already knows that 2 powerful early-stage Supremes are about to arrive here. Coupled with the fact that he now has the strength to break out of the encirclement, it's absolutely impossible for him to continue to stay. Even if we don't mean to, the Bao Yuan will start this battle. Since that's the case, why don't we take the initiative and gain an advantage in terms of momentum? If that's the case, then let's fight. Let's join hands and try to take down this monstrous Bao Yuan. Roar! Screech! Rumble! As the voices of these divine senses came, the 3 balls of light in the void of the universe 2 billion miles away moved together in an instant, rushing towards the central area where the Shinong cauldron stood. Void in the sky, the rumbling of thunder that shook the heavens and the earth resounded. Along with their arrival, the balls of light that enveloped the 3 primordial almighty figures completely dispersed and were absorbed into their bodies. It was also at this instant that 3 extremely enormous space ferocious beasts appeared in Yixian's field of vision. The 3 ferocious beasts were all the same as the blood-devouring staryak from before. They were enormous in size, and compared to the Bao Yuan, they were merely 1 or 2 times smaller. Amongst them, the most formidable was actually a purple-armored sky beetle. It was also a type of space bug, and its entire body was violet and lustrous, as if it was covered in a layer of enormous violet armor. Its cultivation aura that emanated from its body was at the 5th level of the primordial almighty figure, and it was only 1 level away from attaining the peak of the intermediate almighty figure stage. The second was a 3-headed blood dog, and the cultivation aura that emanated from its body was at the 4th level of the primordial almighty figure stage. It could be considered to have just entered the intermediate almighty stage. The last was a 9-eyed black cat, and its eyes flickered with wisps of dark light, giving off an extremely mysterious feeling. This 9-eyed black cat was very likely to possess some kind of eye technique, because this pair of eyes was really too strange, and it was impossible for it not to have any special ability. The cultivation aura that emanated from its body was the weakest, and it was only at the 1st level of the primordial almighty figure stage. Rumble! Rumble! Amidst the earth-shattering rumbling of thunder, these 3 powerful primordial almighty figures came from the void 2 billion miles away at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they had already traversed nearly half of the 1 billion miles and were directly approaching the Bao Yuan, who was standing on the side of the Shinong cauldron. The final moment of the battle has finally arrived. Seeing this scene, the Bao Yuan's eyes flashed with a cold light, and it raised its head and roared. Since that's the case, then let's fight. Roar! Whoosh! Chapter 4587. The battle was about to begin, and the time for the final battle had arrived. Whoosh! With Yixian's thought, a small bloody light, like a firefly, shot out from the forehead of the violent ape. It was extremely fast, and it expanded with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a boundless blood sea with a radius of 1 billion miles in front of the universe void. Roar! Roar! Screech! In an instant, from 2 different directions of this vast sea of blood, an earth-shattering roar and a ruthless howl rang out. Immediately after, in the shocking boundless sea of blood, Two huge figures instantly rose from the ground. While at this time, the violent ape with the Shinong cauldron on its head also rushed into this blood sea. Ching in the blink of an eye, three colossal figures that were 60 million kilometers in size suddenly gathered in the sea of blood. Positive they were the three demon bodies of the ancient ape demons. Blood the flesh body was the starry sky violent ape. The Shinong cauldron on its head was spinning, pouring out a 9-colored mist, which turned into a curtain, protecting the body of the violent ape. This was the strongest defensive means in Yixian's hands. It was enough to protect the body of the violent ape, who was already comparable to a rank 3 supreme being, when fighting a rank 5 supreme being head-on, to ensure that it would not be injured by the opponent's powerful strength. That's right, the physical body of the violent ape chose the purple-armored heavenly beetle of the three ancient supreme beings, the most powerful one, who had the terrifying strength of a rank 5 supreme being. Roar! With a roar, the violent ape with the Shinong cauldron on its head and the Shinong pestle in its hand strode in the blood sea, rushing toward the purple-armored heavenly beetle. The second one was the skeleton of the three demon bodies of the ancient ape demons. There was no flesh and blood. It was just a purple-gold skeleton, exuding an endless ferocious aura, which was extremely ferocious. Whoosh! A weak sound broke through the air, and a light shot out from between the eyebrows of the skeleton. It was 9-colored, and it expanded with the wind, turning into a 9-colored flame sea in an instant. The 9-colored flame sea was elongated like a river of flames, but it was extremely agile. It coiled around the skeleton's body 3 times like a giant python. The battle strength of the skeleton was also only comparable to a rank 3 supreme being, while its opponent was the 3-headed blood dog, whose cultivation strength had reached rank 4 supreme being. But with this ribbon-like 9-colored flame sea, the 3-headed blood dog, who did not dare to touch the 9-colored flame, and would be restrained. The final result of this battle it was really hard to predict. Screech! As the dazzling ribbons of the 9-colored sea of flames wrapped around its body, the skeleton raised its head and let out an earth-shattering howl. Without any hesitation, it immediately charged towards the 3-headed blood dog in the other direction. Blink! Oh! 2. Positive. Black. Although the fog body was also in the shape of a violent ape, its physical body was a black fog. Even its eyes were only 2 purple lights, making it look extremely strange. Black. The black fog body's cultivation aura was also that of a rank 2 supreme being, but its battle strength was the same, which was comparable to a rank 3 supreme being. 3. Each of the Bloodsea clones was 60 million miles long, which made them look like the largest planet in the world. The blood chi in such a terrifying body was so immense that it directly increased their actual fighting strength by 1 level. Black. The opponent of the black fog body was the 9-eyed black cat of the 3 primordial supreme beings. The 9-eyed black cat's eyes flickered with wisps of dark light, giving off an extremely mysterious feeling. It was very likely that it had some kind of eye technique because this pair of eyes was too strange, and it was impossible that it did not have any special ability. As for the cultivation aura emitted from its body, it was the weakest, which was only at the rank 1 supreme being of the primordial supreme beings. The black fog body, which had the battle strength of a rank 3 supreme being, combined with this vast blood sea to fight the 9-eyed black cat, who was only at the rank 1 supreme being of the primordial supreme being level. There was no suspense about the result of this battle. It was very likely that it would end very soon. This way, the black fog body would be able to immediately help the black fog body, and the 2 powerful primordial supreme beings of the primordial supreme being level would be able to fight the 3-headed blood dog alone. There was at least a 50% chance that they could kill the other party. If that was really the case, after the second battle ended, the black fog body and the skeleton body would leave and head to the void in another direction to help the violent ape body that was fighting the purple-armored longhorn bull. If that was the case, the black fog body and the skeleton body would leave and head to the void in another direction to help the violent ape body that was fighting the purple-armored longhorn bull. This way, with the battle strength of 3 rank 3 supreme beings, fighting the primordial supreme being of the primordial supreme being alone, they could at least guarantee that they would not lose. Although the possibility of killing it was still not high, only about 30 to 40%, but even if they could not kill it in the end, this battle was definitely worth it. Because killing the 9-eyed black cat and 3-headed blood dog had already increased the number of precious blood essences in Yixian's hands by 2 more. Yixian had already calculated everything before he decided to carry out this final battle. In his opinion, the success rate of obtaining 2 more blood essences in this battle was about 50%, and the success rate of obtaining only 1 blood essence was between 60 to 70%. No matter how big the risk was, it was worth it for him to take the risk and stay and fight again. Walala at this moment, as the black fog body and the primordial supreme being left, the black fog body, which stood alone in the vast blood sea, raised its head and let out a shocking roar. Then before the roar fell, the black fog body, which was 60 million miles long, turned into a cloud of blood mist and dissipated, merging into the vast blood sea beneath his feet. Then the vast blood sea, which was 1 billion miles wide, began to shrink at an astonishing speed. In merely half a breath's time, it had shrunk to the size of a finger. Suddenly, with a speed that surpassed that of lightning, it cut through the void and shot towards the 9-eyed black cat that was rumbling towards them from the other direction. 9. The 9-eyed black cat's original body was the same as the other 2 powerful primordial supreme beings, which was also more than 40 million miles long. At this moment it was roaring in the void in front of it and pouncing over. But the boundless sea of blood that was originally a huge target, spanning 1 billion kilometers, suddenly shrank, turning into a droplet of blood-red light that was only the size of a thumb. It shot towards him at an astonishing speed. This kind of small size, this kind of terrifying speed, and the fact that it was attacking the 9-eyed black cat, which was 40 million miles long, and its cultivation was originally above the 9-eyed black cat's. With all of these factors added together, if the 9-eyed black cat was hit, no matter how strong and tough his body was, he would probably be instantly pierced through. Meow? At this moment, the 9-eyed black cat let out a long roar, and 2 pillars of light shot out from its deep eyes. Chapter 4588. Xiao Xiao. A weak but extremely sharp sound rang out. In the void of the universe, 2 black pillars of light shot out from the front. Halfway through, they intertwined and gathered together, finally turning into a black ray of light that was tens of thousands of feet in diameter. It shot towards the tiny blood bead at an extremely fast speed, enveloping it. The 2 black pillars of light that instantly intertwined together were shot out from the eyes of the roaring 9-eyed black cat. These were 2 energy pillars of eye technique, which were also known as the pupil pillars. The 9-eyed black cat was an extremely rare space beast, and was considered a rare space mutant. It was said that cats had 9 lives, and this 9-eyed black cat had refined the 9 lives divine ability in its bloodline into its eyes, turning into a pair of black 9-eyed cat's eyes. This pair of cat's eyes were extremely deep, and there were a total of 9 layers of pupils. These 9 layers of pupils had evolved into the 9-eyed black cat's bloodline divine ability, which had the powerful ability to see through illusions, and even had the effect of physical attacks. Therefore, the black pupil pillars that shot out from the 9-eyed black cat's eyes could see through all concealment secret techniques and divine abilities. If necessary, the 9-eyed black cat could even use it to directly pierce through a star. It was extremely easy. Even compared to the antimatter energy pillars of the 3 main dimensions of the universe, it was much, much stronger. This kind of eye technique that could see through illusions and also had the effect and power of a physical attack was extremely powerful to begin with. Coupled with the fact that the 9-eyed black cat's cultivation had reached the primordial realm, when the 2 were combined, when he used this eye technique, its power and destructive power would obviously be extremely terrifying right now. The 9-eyed black cat had used its most powerful bloodline divine ability as soon as it came up. This was partly because it was not very confident in this battle. After all, it was only a first-stage primordial great power, but the black fog body's cultivation base had already reached the second-stage primordial great power, and its real battle strength was comparable to a third-stage primordial great power. If he didn't make the first move to gain the upper hand, once he fell into a passive situation and was suppressed, it would be difficult for him to find a chance to make a comeback. On the other hand, it was because the body of black fog controlled the entire vast sea of blood to merge with itself, turning into a drop of blood that was only the size of a thumb. All of its power was used to increase its speed. It was extremely fast and it was shocking. It was shooting towards him at an extremely fast speed. This kind of extreme speed caused the 9-eyed black cat to feel fear and a sense of helplessness. He was worried that this tiny and insignificant blood droplet would pierce through his body. Therefore, he used this bloodline ability that he relied on as his trump card. At this moment, as the two rays of light intertwined and gathered together, the black pupil pillar, which was already hundreds of thousands of feet in diameter, completely enveloped the tiny blood droplets that were shooting over from afar. The nine-eyed black cat's heart, which had been in its throat all this time, finally fell back to its chest. He was completely relieved because he had a strong confidence in the powerful eye technique that he viewed as a trump card. In the eyes of the nine-eyed black cat, even if his cultivation was not as strong as the body of black fog, this black pupil light pillar might not be able to directly wipe out the tiny blood droplet that was already enveloped. It would definitely be able to break through the surging momentum of the blood droplet and make the vast sea of blood, which had shrunk to the size of a thumb, reappear. This, at least, eliminated the danger that he was facing before, which was very likely to be pierced through by this tiny blood droplet. His guess was not wrong. Under normal circumstances, this was indeed the result. After all, eye techniques were originally one of the most mysterious divine abilities in the galaxy, and the nine-eyed black cat's eye technique was cultivated from its own 9 lives bloodline. Even among all the various eye techniques, it was definitely one of the more powerful ones. However, this was not the case. Unfortunately, the opponent he encountered this time was not someone else but Yi Xian. Pupil technique. Yi Xian also had it. Back in the void of the ancient cage, Yi Xian had already refined a vertical eye between his eyebrows, called the demon soul pupil. Here not only did eye techniques have the ability to see through illusions, but they also had the effect and power of physical attacks. Other than that, they could even be traced back to the source, and see the origin and essence of things through appearance. If the nine-eyed black cat's eye technique divine ability was considered a top-notch eye technique among the thousands of races in the starry sky, then Yi Xian's demon soul pupil was definitely the most top-notch eye technique divine ability. Here also meant that the nine-eyed black cat today was destined to die here. Whoosh! Crack, crack, crack. Here at this moment, as the black pupil light pillar of the nine-eyed black cat that was hundreds of thousands of feet in size enveloped the tiny blood bead that was shooting over, an extremely weak sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from within this black pupil light pillar. Then, the black light beam that was hundreds of thousands of meters long shattered like a huge piece of black glass, turning into countless black energy spots. After they collapsed in the void, they quietly disappeared. Dang! At the same time that the tiny blood droplet formed by the sea of blood was enveloped by the black pupil light pillar, the black fog body also activated the eye technique divine ability of the demon soul pupil in its body. They were both eye techniques and divine abilities, but the demonic soul pupil was stronger. Just a weak ray of light shot out, like a small but incomparably hard steel needle, piercing into a fragile but huge piece of glass. In an instant, it broke and destroyed the nine-eyed black cat's light pillar of light. Divine ability. The most direct consequence of breaking through was the backlash that came with it. Almost at the same time that this gigantic pupil light pillar shattered like glass, in the cosmic void in front of them, an incomparably shrill and miserable cry was instantly heard. Screech! Meow, meow, meow. In the distance, the nine-eyed black cat, whose body was more than 40 million miles long, had already exploded its huge eyes. Black blood flowed out, hanging on its face, and tears were still flowing. It looked ferocious and terrifying, making one's hair stand on end. The eye technique divine ability was broken, and the nine-eyed black cat suffered a backlash. The eye technique divine ability that it had painstakingly cultivated completely dissipated, and even its eyes were blinded. At this moment, its body was struggling to jump around in the void, its mouth meowing wildly, already revealing the extreme fear and uneasiness in its heart. In fact, as a powerful ancient expert, even if it lost its eyes, it was not a big deal. Once the divine consciousness spread out, it could see more clearly than the naked eye. However, to the nine-eyed black cat, this pair of eyes was far too important to him. They represented the eye technique divine ability that he regarded as his trump card and relied on. Now that his eyes were blinded, he was extremely terrified. He even extended his divine sense to replace his eyes to investigate everything. He had completely forgotten about this matter. Black the fog body naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Whoosh! Chapter 4589. Swish! Screech! An incomparably sharp sound of something tearing through the air rang out, followed closely by an even more mournful and miserable howl. This drop of blood was so small that it was only the size of a human's fingertip. It was formed by the black fog body of Yi Xian's 3 great demon ape bodies after merging with the entire vast sea of blood, and shrinking it to an extreme extent. It was extremely powerful and its speed was extremely fast. At this moment it shot over, and in the blink of an eye, it traversed a distance of 700 to 800 million miles and directly pierced through the nine-eyed black cat's body. Unfortunately, the blood bead was originally aimed at the nine-eyed black cat's glabella. If it pierced through, it would instantly destroy its soul, causing its sea of consciousness to collapse and it would die. However, because the nine-eyed black cat was still in a state of panic and fear after losing its eye technique ability, its huge body was jumping around randomly. Therefore, it directly caused the blood droplet to land on a different spot. In the end, it was not able to directly pierce through the nine-eyed black cat's sea of consciousness and cause its soul to be destroyed. However, this did not matter. The black fog body did not put this nine-eyed black cat in its eyes at all. If one attack did not kill it, at most it would just attack again. Swish! Walala! Break. After the sound of the air, the sound of splashing water spread out in all directions. The tiny blood bead that had just pierced through the nine-eyed black cat's body expanded in the blink of an eye. In less than half a breath, it expanded into a boundless sea of blood that spanned 1 billion miles. In the next moment, a cloud of black fog rose from the sea of blood and quickly condensed into a huge body that was 60 million miles long. It was the black fog body of Yi Xian's 3 great demon apes. Screech! This time it revealed its true form. The black fog body raised its head and let out an earth-shattering howl. Immediately after, the entire vast sea of blood under its feet quickly enveloped it. In less than half a breath, it completely covered the nine-eyed black cat that was jumping around randomly in the void. In the next moment, the nine-eyed black cat's body that was jumping around randomly suddenly became sluggish, as if it had fallen into some kind of sticky swamp. Naturally, the black fog body would not let go of such an opportunity. Raise one's head before the furious voice of the head had even faded away. The black fog body had already strode forward. The entire black fog body that was 60 million miles in size rapidly solidified, transforming from its previous state of drifting fog into a state of solid black steel. Bang! A loud roar rang out from the void. Following the arrival of the black fog, a punch was ruthlessly thrown towards the nine-eyed black cat's head. The latter's huge body instantly exploded. Under the terrifying power of this all-out attack, the body of the black fog exploded into a cloud of black blood mist and spread out. This kind of result was expected from the start. The nine-eyed black cat's cultivation was only at the first stage of the primordial era, while the black fog body of the Yi Xian demon ape was comparable to the 3rd stage of the primordial era. Chong 2 small steps up. Coupled with the fact that the nine-eyed black cat's divine ability had been destroyed and both its eyes were blinded, its entire body was still immersed in an intense sense of fear. Under such circumstances, he was completely defenseless. As such, he was naturally defeated in one strike. Swoosh! Being caught off guard and killing the enemy in one strike was simply an instant kill. Such a result made the black fog body relax, and a look of joy appeared on its ferocious and mysterious face. Without any hesitation, the black fog body immediately waved its hand, and an incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from its body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. The black blood mist that had just spread out was swept up in an instant, turning into a green waterfall of chi and blood. It was like a long rainbow that pierced through the sky, and nimbly drilled into its body. It would wait until the end of the battle before it began. The blood essence condensation. Blinking, in the blink of an eye, of the 4 powerful primordial era experts that had come this time, Yi Xian had killed another one. At this time, with the death of the nine-eyed black cat, the majestic blood mist formed by the explosion of its body was completely absorbed by the black fog body. This also meant that Yi Xian now had 1 more blood essence, bringing the total number to 2. Only just this harvest alone was enough to justify his decision to stay and fight the final battle. The blood essence of a powerful being was worth everything. But this was obviously not the end of it. At this time, although Yi Xian didn't have any more intentions, he had long since regarded the 3-headed blood dog as something that was already in his bag. He had to kill it. Walala! Pow! The sound of water splashing could be heard, and the entire majestic sea of blood that was hundreds of millions of miles away suddenly surged violently. In less than half a breath, it turned into a long and narrow blood-colored ribbon like the 9-colored flame ribbon that was hovering around the skeleton. They surged and revolved in space in an extremely agile manner, and in the end they coiled around the massive body of the black mist 3 times, one on top of the other 3 times. 3. It was over. After doing all this, the black fog body raised its head and let out a fierce howl. Its huge body, which was larger than a giant star, immediately took large strides in the void and rushed toward the battlefield on the right. The fierce battle in this direction was between the skeleton body and the 3-headed blood dog of Yixian demon ape's 3 bodies. The 3-headed blood dog's cultivation strength was at the 4th level of the Desolation era, while the skeleton body's real battle strength was only at the 3rd level of the Desolation era. But if the 9-colored flame sea had not transformed into a long and narrow ribbon that wrapped around the skeleton's body, and was like a spirit snake during the battle, occasionally flashing left and right to launch attacks, causing the 3-headed bloodhound to be incomparably fearful and often hurriedly withdraw its attacks to avoid it. The battle had lasted until now, and it was impossible for it to be the same as before, where they were only evenly matched. That's right. Even with the help of the 9-colored flame sea that turned into a nimble, boa-like ribbon, the skeleton clone was only able to tie with the 3-headed hound in the battle. The higher the level of one's strength, the more the difference of one's battle strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. Currently, Yixian already possessed the battle prowess of a supreme being from the primordial era. In this great realm, the difference of a small stage represented an unprecedented distance, however. This situation was obviously about to change, because the body of Black Fog had already finished off the 9-eyed black cat at lightning speed. In this way, with the addition of the Black Fog body and the majestic sea of blood, 2 of the 3 bodies of the demon ape were fighting the 3-headed black dog, and the balance of the battle would be broken in a very short time. Screech! In the fierce howl of the sky, the Black Fog body that was rushing over with large strides finally came close. No. Chapter 4590. In the void, 2 huge figures were engaged in a fierce battle. 1. The first one was 60 million miles long, and its whole body was covered in bones. It was extremely ferocious, and there was a ribbon of 9-colored flames around its body. It was extremely agile, and it pierced out from time to time, forcing its opponent to dodge hurriedly. This was the skeleton of one of Yixian's 3 great bodies of the devil ape. The other one was only 40 million miles long, and its whole body was blood red, but it had 3 heads, and each of them spat out lightning and fire. It was the 3-headed bloodhound, who had the terrifying cultivation of a rank 4 mighty figure. In a battle of this level, it was rare to use magic treasures and other auxiliary items. Instead, they used their own bloodline magical powers or bloodline secret techniques to defend against the enemy. If it was not a remote antiquity supreme treasure like the Shenong Cauldron or the Shenong Medicinal Pestle, it would not be able to withstand the terrifying collision force of the battle at this level and would be destroyed. Therefore, the skeleton and the 3-headed bloodhound merely waved their fists and fought instinctively. Sometimes they spat out thunderbolts and flames and controlled the ribbons formed by the 9-colored sea of flames to suddenly attack like a spirit snake. The battle had been going on for so long, and they were still evenly matched. Of course, not much time had passed since the battle began, and it was still in the stage where the battle had just begun. Roar! Suddenly, the skeleton raised its head and let out a roar. The 9-colored ribbon around its body suddenly waved rapidly, and at the same time, its figure was rapidly approaching the 3-headed bloodhound. The latter was obviously extremely fearful of the 9-colored ribbons that wrapped around the body of the skeleton. The ribbon looked beautiful, but in fact, its power was extremely terrifying. It was formed by the 9-colored flames of Shenong. Not to mention the remote antiquity supreme figure, even the supreme figure of the ancients could only temporarily avoid it and did not dare to touch it. If it were not for the fact that the 3-headed bloodhound's cultivation was higher than the skeleton's in terms of speed and reaction, the skeleton would have been able to trap it, suppress it, and kill it with just the ribbon formed by the 9-colored sea of flames. Here, when the 3-headed bloodhound saw the skeleton charging over and the 9-colored ribbons that wrapped around it suddenly began to dance violently, a cold light flashed in its eyes. Fear appeared on its 3 ferocious heads. Crack. Hoo. Boom. Almost at the same time, the three ferocious dog heads opened their bloody mouths, and three different energy attacks rushed out from the three bloody mouths. This was the bloodline talent of the three-headed bloodhound. He was born with the ability to spit out lightning and fire. Here at this moment, the central dog head spewed out a boundless sea of black flames. It covered the sky and covered the earth as it moved towards the skeleton. However, this was obviously useless. The skeleton had the 9 colored ribbons of the Shenong 9-colored flame around it. How could it be afraid of this black flame? This is what he did was obviously just to slow down the momentum of the skeleton avatar. While the bloody mouths of the two dog heads on the left and right respectively spat out a large amount of thunder and lightning, one from the left and one from the right. They surrounded the skeleton avatar and blasted it. These two seas of thunder and lightning couldn't seriously injure the skeleton avatar, but they could more or less severely injure it. Therefore, with a flash of purple light in its eyes, the skeleton avatar stopped in an instant. The 9-color flame sea that wrapped around its body scattered in an instant, turning into a 9-color flame sea. Block! In front of it, while blocking the roaring sea of black flames and the sea of thunder and lightning that rushed towards it from the left and right, it also spread out in an instant, spreading out in a reverse direction, spreading out around the three-headed bloodhound. It was obvious that they were trying to surround the three-headed blood dog. If the 9-colored flame sea was allowed to spread out and seal off the surroundings, the three-headed blood dog would be in a predicament even if its cultivation was stronger than the skeleton's body. It would not be able to get close to the flame sea for the time being and be refined by it. Such a result was definitely not what the three-headed bloodhound wanted to see and accept. With a flash of coldness in its eyes, the three-headed bloodhound's figure retreated rapidly, wanting to retreat further into the void to avoid the 9-colored sea of flames that was spreading out in front of it from all directions. Screech. Roar. At this time the blood fog avatar rushed over with big steps. It raised its head and let out a shocking roar. Its right fist, which had already materialized, was as hard as steel, instantly blasted out. His figure happened to be behind the three-headed bloodhound. The blood fog avatar's attention was all on the skeleton avatar in front of it, and the 9-colored sea of flames that was spreading out to surround it. It did not notice the movement behind it at all. By the time the three-headed bloodhound reacted, everything was too late. Bang. A woo. An earth-shattering sound came. The punch of the black fog avatar directly hit the back of the three-headed bloodhound's head in the middle of the dog head, blasting a huge blood bag there. Although the dog head did not explode, it fainted on the spot. Although the other two dog heads were awake, the dog head in the middle was after all the main head. Therefore, for a moment the three-headed bloodhound could not react at all. Its entire huge body tumbled forward. The 9-colored sea of flames was in front of it from all directions. It originally wanted to retreat further, but it was unexpectedly attacked and fell forward instead. Whoosh! The sea spread out at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had surrounded the three-headed bloodhound from all directions and turned into a huge ball of flames. The three-headed bloodhound was right in the middle of this ball. It was trapped in an instant. Buzz! Look! Seeing this scene, the skeleton avatar immediately stopped moving. Almost at the same time, a weak low buzzing sound was heard. Following that, the skeleton avatar raised its left arm, and a ferocious energy bow quickly condensed. Its shape was quite ancient and mysterious. The bow was composed of 3 parts. In the middle was a 2-headed monster with its wide-open mouth facing up and down. On the top and bottom of the bow, there were 2 humanoid creatures with bowed bodies. The 2-headed monster's wide-open mouth swallowed the 2 humanoid creatures' legs and a part of their calves. The ends of the bow were connected to their painfully raised heads, and their mouths were where the bowstring was. Their hands were at the sides of their mouths, as if they were howling, and their expressions were inexplicably strange. The bowstring was obviously formed by countless fine golden threads twisted together, and the 2 ends were connected to the 2 humanoid creatures' wide mouths. Then, a golden energy arrow appeared on the bowstring. It was Yixian's most powerful magical power, the Heaven Sundering Bow. In order to buy time and kill the 3-headed bloodhound with 1 arrow as soon as possible, he did not care much and decided to use the Heaven Sundering Bow, the most powerful magical power that would somewhat affect him soon. the eyes of the skeleton avatar burst out with a strange golden glow. It stretched out its right hand and directly pinched the energy arrow on the bowstring of the giant energy bow in its left hand, and slowly pulled the string. Wong. Chapter 4591. Whoosh. At this moment, the skeleton released its right hand that was holding the energy bowstring in the air. An extremely sharp sound that resonated with one's eardrums rang out. The energy arrow, which had already been filled with the power of the bowstring, instantly shot out. The aura was too strong. It was simply unstoppable. When this arrow was shot out, it seemed that even the void was instantly broken. As the golden arrow burst out, a black wave like a tail flame appeared behind it. The time was so short that it could be completely ignored. This golden arrow whistled through the air at an extremely fast speed and instantly arrived in front of the three-headed bloodhound. Fallen sky bow? This is impossible. No. In the next moment, the dizziness of the middle head of the three-headed bloodhound disappeared. When it opened its eyes and saw the golden arrow in front of it, it was instantly shocked. It roared fiercely, and its eyes were filled with endless unwillingness and despair. However, it could not change anything. Bang! Everything that happened next was without suspense. In the blink of an eye, as the golden arrow sank into the middle head of the three-headed bloodhound, the 4-million-mile-long body of the three-headed bloodhound instantly collapsed, completely exploding into a brilliant blood mist and spreading out. Whoosh! A weak sound of breaking through the air immediately rang out. At this moment, the black fog body that was rushing over also waved its hand at the first moment. An incomparably majestic invisible force rolled out from its body, enveloping a radius of 10 million miles. Just the majestic blood mist that had just spread out was swept up and absorbed into its body. It would be sent into the Shinnon cauldron after the battle to start the blood essence condensation. In the blink of an eye, of the 4 powerful ancient powerhouses that had come this time, Yi Xian had killed one of them. At this time, with the fall of the three-headed bloodhound, the majestic blood mist formed by the explosion of the body was completely absorbed by the black fog body. This also meant that Yi Xian now had 1 more blood essence in his hands, bringing the total number to 3. He had obtained another blood essence of a powerful being. His goal had been achieved. However, this was still not the end. Yi Xian still wanted to fight one last battle. Whoosh! Break! The sound of the air rang out, and the 9-colored sea of flames that had spread out rapidly shrank into a 9-colored ribbon again. It was like an extremely agile starry sky-colored python, instantly wrapping around the skeleton body. Roar! Screech! The next moment, the skeleton doppelganger and the black fog doppelganger raised their heads and let out a furious roar and a vicious howl respectively. Then, with the flame sea ribbons and the blood sea ribbons entwining around them, they strode forward at an extremely fast speed and charged toward the left. There, the physical body of the devil ape, the violent star ape, was engaged in a heaven-shaking battle with the rank 5 heavenly beetle. Boom. Rumble. More than 1 billion miles ahead, in the cosmic void, a series of earth-shattering explosions could be heard. One of the devil ape's 3 main bodies, the violent star ape, was currently engaged in an earth-shattering battle with the rank 5 grandmaster, the purple-armored sky beetle. The purple-armored longhorn beetle was a very rare species of space bug. Its entire body was purple like the purest amethyst, and its body was close to 50 million miles long. Relatively, even though the ape was 60 million miles long, it was only slightly thinner than before. This kind of space bug had a pair of antennae on its head. It should have some kind of mysterious bloodline power. In addition, there was a tube-shaped mouthpiece in the middle of its head. The tube-shaped mouthpiece was the purple-armored sky beetle's most common and most powerful attack method. As a rank 5 almighty, the purple-armored sky beetle's physical body was extremely powerful. Even in the void of the primordial world, he could definitely tear it apart with brute force with his tentacles. However, at this moment the purple-armored sky beetle didn't use this kind of close combat method. Instead, it was roaming the cosmic void about 200 million miles away from the violent star ape. From time to time, a purple energy beam would shoot out from the huge mouthpiece in the middle of its huge head, blasting towards the violent star ape. The purple-armored sky beetle's body was 40 million miles long. Even just its mouthpiece was extremely shocking. It was hundreds of thousands of feet long. The purple energy beam that it shot out had a diameter of hundreds of thousands of feet. Even the cannons of the giant star fortress weren't as terrifying. Dong! However, it wasn't just the diameter. There was no comparison at all in terms of energy level. The purple armored sky beetle was a rank 5 almighty, so it was easy to imagine how terrifying the purple energy beam that it spat out from its mouth was. However, at this moment, Bao Yuan's entire body was enveloped by the dense purple light screen of the Shenong cauldron hanging above his head. This layer of overflowing purple light screen seemed thin like a layer of fog, but in fact, it represented all of the power of the Shenong cauldron's domain. Although the purple armored sky beetle was a rank 5 grandmaster, the energy beam that shot out from its mouthpiece couldn't blast open the mist light screen that protected the violent star ape. It couldn't break through the defense at all. The battle had been going on for a while now. After all, in the other two battlefields, the body of black fog and the body of bones had killed the other two powerful figures of the primordial era. But even so, the purple armored sky beetle still couldn't do any damage to the violent star ape. He had been roaming around the violent star ape, shooting out energy beams from time to time to test the violent star ape, but in fact he was looking for a chance to severely injure the violent star ape. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, an extremely sharp sound broke through the air, and a black light rushed out of the mist that shrouded the violent star ape and disappeared in the void. At this moment, the purple armored sky beetle was alarmed, and his heart was in his throat. This black light was clearly the ferocious big-headed black stick in the violent star ape's hand. Because the purple armored sky beetle kept a distance of 200 million miles from the violent star ape, the violent star ape couldn't use this big-headed black stick to hit him at all. And now the big-headed black stick turned into a light that rushed out of the 9-colored mist and then disappeared. This was clearly a sign that its space power was activated. This kind of attack was the most troublesome, and it was impossible to guard against it. The purple armored sky beetle was nervous to the extreme, and he was ready to dodge if the situation was not right. However, in view of the violent ape's previous actions, the purple armored sky beetle's attention was almost entirely focused on the direction behind him. This was because every time before, the big-headed black stick that activated the spatial power would launch a sneak attack like this. Bang bang. Gotcha. However, the situation this time was out of his expectation. The big-headed black stick appeared directly in front of him, and it was only 100 miles away. When the purple armored sky beetle came back to his senses, it was already too late. The big-headed black stick smashed down and broke the two purple antennae on the top of his head. Even the tubular mouthpart in the middle of his head was smashed into a flower. Awoo! Chapter 4592. It was just one attack, but the purple armored heaven beetle had suffered a great loss. This attack seemed casual, but in reality, it was the result of observing for a long time and waiting for an opportunity to act. Since the beginning of the battle, Bao Yuan had never used this big-headed black stick. On one hand, it was because the purple armored heaven beetle had deliberately kept a distance of 200 million miles. From afar, it would blast an energy beam to test Bao Yuan's results. On the other hand, it was Yi Xian's intention. While the purple armored sky beetle was using this method to increase the distance between them, shooting out energy beams from time to time to test and observe the 9-colored fog surrounding the Bao Yuan, wasn't the Bao Yuan doing the same as well? During this process, Yi Xian keenly discovered that the purple armored heavenly beetle had been intentionally or unintentionally protecting the two antennae above his head. Every time it moved, it would deliberately turn the two antennae to a safer position. Then again. Plus, the space insect race usually had all kinds of unique bloodline divine abilities related to their biological frequency. They were either used for communication, escape, or attack. And since all of this was related to the biological frequency of the Space Erg clan, then the antennae on its head were naturally the key to it. The space insect race Yi Xian had encountered in the past were basically all like this. In other words, the antennae on the head or other parts of the body were almost the space insect race's Achilles heel. Although they were not like the 7 inches of a snake, once they were grasped, they could be subdued. But as long as the antennae of the space insect race were destroyed, they could not use the unique bloodline talents they activated through the biological frequency in their body, or be greatly affected. From the beginning of the battle until now, this purple armored heaven beetle knew that the purple energy beam from the central tubular mouthpart under his head could not break the 9-colored fog light curtain around Bao Yuan at all. But it continued to do so, blasting out a beam from time to time. This did this, on one hand, to observe and find the weakness of the 9-colored purple fog light curtain. But in Yixian's view, the main purpose was to confuse. Boom, if there were too many of them, Yixian would naturally get used to it and think that this was his main method of attack. During the great battle, most of his attention would be on guarding against the purple energy beam that shot out from this tubular mouthpiece. Once this inertia was formed, it would be the best time for the purple armored sky beetle to make a move. Maybe he would suddenly activate the biological frequency in his body while Yixian was unprepared, and activate some unique bloodline latent ability through the two long and thin antennae on his head. He was a space bug in the desolate antiquity realm. Who the hell knew what his bloodline talent was? This was a secret technique that was driven by the biological wave frequency of the space bug clan. It was invisible and intangible. If it could penetrate through the 9-colored fog light curtain of the Shinong cauldron, and directly affect the real body of the raging ape hiding behind the light curtain, that would be bad. Positive because of this, since the beginning of the battle, Yixian had been thinking about how to destroy the two antennae on the head of the purple armored sky beetle. Although the two long and thin antennae on the head of a powerful 5th-level space bug could grow out again if they were destroyed, it would take time. However, that would require some time. At the very least, in this current battle, these two antennae and some or even some unique insectoid bloodline talents and secret techniques that were related to them could not be counted on. It was as if they had been crippled. This was so important that it was on a strategic level. Yixian naturally attached great importance to it and had been waiting patiently. When the time came, he suddenly made a move. He shot out the big-headed black stick and successfully destroyed the two long and thin antennae on the head of the purple armored sky beetle. At the same time, he also blasted the tubular mouthpiece below the head into a flower. Although it could still be recovered, it was obviously destroyed for now. Although all of this was just Yixian's speculation, in fact, this calculation was extremely exquisite. It could be said to be a stroke of genius. At this moment, as the pair of long and thin antennae on the head was blasted off, the heart of the purple armored sky beetle sank to the bottom of the valley. His greatest trump card was indeed related to his unique spacebug clan biological frequency. But since it was a biological frequency, it was like the space radar on a battleship. It needed external equipment like an antenna to display its power. Now that the two long and thin antennae on the head were destroyed, it was like a space radar without external equipment like an antenna. His spacebug clan biological frequency had no power at all. There was a golden mountain in the air, but it could not be used at all. This feeling made the purple armored sky beetle extremely sullen and angry. A few minutes later, subconsciously, after the miserable howl due to the intense pain ended, the purple armored sky beetle under the violent ape immediately activated all the power in his body, turning it into a majestic and almost terrifying energy that surged toward the tubular mouthpiece below the head. This was his strongest attack, far stronger than the purple energy light pillars that were blasted out from time to test and confuse the violent ape. The purple armored sky beetle even had an illusion that under this full-strength attack in a state of anger, the scorching purple energy light pillar that shot out from the tubular mouthpiece below the head might even be able to break the layer of 9-colored fog light curtain that enveloped the violent ape in one fell swoop. Boom! An earth-shaking roar sounded, and the mouth area below the purple armored sky beetle's head suddenly shone with a purple light. The intensity of the light was almost 10 times stronger than the previous purple energy light pillars that were blasted out. This time he was indeed using all his strength in a rage. It was indeed the strongest attack since the battle with the violent ape. Unfortunately, he was tragically defeated. Because all of his attention was focused on the two slender antennae that were broken off on the top of his head, the purple armored sky beetle was so agitated that he forgot about his tubular mouthpiece. In fact, it had been damaged by the violent ape's rod earlier, and had long turned into a morning glory. And moreover, this deformed horn-shaped mouthpiece had some cracked forks that were bent back at an angle of more than 90 degrees. It was aimed straight at the huge body behind his head. As a result, as this energy light pillar was blasted out, the purple light below the purple armored sky beetle's head shone brightly. What should have been a single energy light pillar was divided into countless large and small beams. Some were blasted forward, above and below, but more of them surged along the curved horn-shaped mouthpiece and blasted toward his own body. Awoo! The purple armored sky beetle let out an even more miserable howl before. and his entire body was about to collapse. On the front half of his body, there were countless holes of various sizes. Some of them even pierced through his huge body that was 40 million miles long. Although it was not serious injuries, it was definitely not as simple as a light injury. It was between light injuries and serious injuries. More importantly, his mind was severely injured. Chapter 4593. Roar. Screech. In the distance, earth-shattering roars and howls could be heard. Two incomparably huge figures that were at least 60 million miles in size, one on the left and one on the right, took large strides side by side as they rushed over in the void. One of them was a skeleton without any flesh and blood. It was just a purple-gold skeleton that exuded an endless ferocious aura. It was incomparably ferocious. Following that, as it strode over, a ray of light shot out from between its eyebrows. It was nine-colored and expanded with the wind. In an instant, it turned into a nine-colored sea of flames. It was long in the shape of a river of flames, but it was extremely agile. It was like a giant python that coiled around the skeleton's body 3 times. The second one was a ghost-like black fog body. Under its feet was a majestic sea of blood that was hundreds of millions of miles away. But at this moment, the sea of blood suddenly surged violently. In less than half a breath, it turned into a long and narrow blood-colored ribbon that was coiling around the skeleton's body. They surged and revolved in space in an extremely agile manner, and in the end they also wound themselves around the massive body of the black mist 3 times, one on top of the other 3 times. These 2 huge figures were the skeleton body and the black fog body of Yixian demon ape. Just now they had just killed the 9-eyed black cat and the 3-headed bloodhound. Now they came together and were going to try to kill the level 5 mighty purple armored sky beetle with the violent ape. Of course it was just an attempt. If there was no chance, Yixian would escape. Anyway, this purple armored sky beetle could not hold him back at all. At this time, the purple armored sky beetle had just accidentally injured him and was furious. Cold when he suddenly heard the shocking roars and howls from the skeleton body and the black fog body in the distance. He was stunned. He did not pay attention to the situation of the other 2 battlefields at all. On one hand, it was because this battle had just begun. He did not expect that the 9-eyed black cat and the 3-headed bloodhound would be defeated in such a short time. On the other hand, on one hand it was because the distance was too far. Moreover, his entire mind was already placed on probing and observing the violent starry sky ape, and he utterly didn't have the time to pay attention to the situation of the other 2 battlefields that were over 1 billion kilometers away. At this time, as the skeleton body and the black fog body came together at the same time, the purple armored sky beetle immediately realized that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw only the skeleton body and the black fog body in the void in the distance. The 9-eyed black cat and 3-headed bloodhound were no longer there. The violet armored sky beetle instantly understood everything, and an unprecedented feeling of astonishment suddenly arose in its heart, too terrifying. In such a short time, the 9-eyed black cat and bloodhound had been killed. The 9-eyed black cat was only a rank 1 expert, but the 3-headed bloodhound was different. He was a rank 4 expert from the primordial age, and was only a small level lower than Zhou Bao. Now the antennae on top of his head had been destroyed, and even the tubular mouthpart had been smashed into a morning glory that could only injure him by accident. In this situation, the most powerful biological frequency bloodline secret technique could not be used, and even the purple energy beam could not be used. It was clear that he was forced to engage in hand-to-hand combat with Bao Yuan's 3 Blood Sea avatars. These were 3 existences whose battle strength was comparable to a Stage 3 Almighty. If they joined forces to fight him, coupled with the big-headed black stick and the 9-colored flame sea, even if he was a Stage 5 Almighty, there was a possibility of him dying. Unexpectedly, he was already in a state of light injuries. Thinking of this, the purple armored sky beetle raised his head and let out an unwilling roar. His body trembled and he was about to escape. If the 2 slender antennae on top of his head were still there, he could leave at any time. Even if he was trapped by the 9-colored flame sea, it would not matter. He could fully activate the unique biological frequency in his body. As if teleporting, he could avoid the obstruction of the 9-colored flame sea and leave. But now, he could not use this ability. He could only use his physical body to cross the void and quickly retreat. and the violent ape obviously would not give him such an opportunity. Swish! Swish swish! At this moment, seeing that the purple armored sky beetle was about to escape, the violent ape thought, and a few sharp sounds of breaking through the air rang out. The Shinong cauldron above his head shot out towards the left side of the purple armored sky beetle at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a majestic 9-colored flame sea poured out from the mouth of the cauldron, enveloping the void along the way. As for the big-headed black stick, it rushed forward and blocked the path of the purple armored sky beetle. When it shot forward at an extremely fast speed, there was also a 9-colored flame sea pouring out from the thick head of the stick. Was also Yi Xian's trump card. He did not even have the time to use it in the previous battle. If the big-headed black stick smashed down, there would be a 9-colored flame sea pouring out from the tip of the stick and enveloping the entire body. That would be the end of the purple armored sky beetle. Swish swish swish! The violent ape also rushed to the right side, completely blocking the right side of the purple armored sky beetle. At the same time, the black fog body and the skeleton body that were rushing over also blocked the last direction, which was the direction of the purple armored sky beetle's retreat. Moreover, as they arrived, rolling 9-colored strange flames surged out of the skeleton and the body within the black fog, instantly sealing off this direction completely. In all 4 directions, there was a majestic 9-colored flame sea. In an instant they combined together and spread out. In just half an instant, they formed a sealed ball, trapping the purple armored sky beetle in the center of the ball. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, the black fog body and the skeleton body collapsed in an instant, turning into a rain of flames and fusing into the 9-colored flame ball under their feet. The next moment, when their figures reappeared, they had already entered the 9-colored flame ball, rising from the ground in the 9-colored flame sea within the ball. When they appeared, there was also the star violent ape with a big-headed black stick on its shoulder. As for the Shinong cauldron that had originally blocked the left side of the path, it had disappeared. No one knew where it was hibernating in the huge flame ball. It could suddenly jump out at any time and launch a fatal blow. At this point, the overall situation was set. With this huge 9-colored flame ball that was close to 1 billion miles in diameter, the purple armored sky beetle, whose slender antennae had been blown off, could no longer escape. But whether or not he would fall here today was still unknown. This was very helpless, but it was the truth. Chapter 4594. This time I've really failed miserably. The purple armored sky beetle, who was standing in the center of the 9-colored fireball, had a look of grief and indignation on his face. His divine sense voice was also transmitted at this moment. His eyes, which were glowing with faint purple light, kept glancing at the 3 blood sea clones of Yi Xian. Even if you join forces to fight me, so what? Even if you use this huge fireball formed by the 9-colored sea of flames to trap me inside, so what if I can't escape? There's not enough time after all. Within 2 days, even if you join forces, you won't be able to kill me. And the 2 powerful early-stage supremes that I've invited will arrive here in 1.5 days at most. Bao Yuan, I advise you to stop. You've already killed 11 of the 12 powerful existences. It's enough no matter what. Don't make a mistake and leave immediately. Otherwise, the one who will die in the end will only be you. Xiao. Before he could finish his words, the eyes of the violent ape standing 300 million miles to his right flashed with a blazing light. Original at this moment, the big-headed black cudgel on his shoulder disappeared in an instant. Humph! It's useless. Seeing this, the purple armored sky beetle snorted coldly, but he secretly raised his guard. In his opinion, it was naturally impossible for the big-headed black stick to kill him. It couldn't even severely injure him. However, this stick was formed by the Shinong pestle after all. Even if he was a rank 5 almighty, it would definitely hurt to be hit by it. Thus therefore, although the purple armored sky beetle didn't seem to care, he had already raised his guard. As soon as he saw that the situation wasn't right, he would immediately withdraw and dodge. This time, his attention was no longer on the back of his head, but on the front of his face that had been hit earlier. Bang! A woo! The sound was followed by a miserable shriek. There was a huge blood bump on the back of the purple armored sky beetle's head. It was visible to the naked eye. The power of this blow was too ferocious. A dignified Tier 5 Supreme Expert was actually struck dizzy. Heavenly Bull, you don't have a chance, but I have plenty of time. I'll kill you within 10 breaths. After that, this Star-Lord can still calmly collect the spoils of war and quietly escape. Before the armored heavenly beetle's miserable howls could be heard, Yi Xian's divine sense voice rang out. Buzz! At this moment, the skeleton also slowly raised its left arm, and a ferocious energy bow quickly condensed into form. Gigantic, the shape of the bow was rather ancient and mysterious. The body of the bow was made up of 3 parts. In the middle was a 2-headed monster. Its wide-open mouth was facing up and down, while the upper and lower parts of the bow were 2 hunched humanoid creatures. The 2-headed monster's raging maw had devoured the legs and calves of the 2 humanoid creatures. Its mouth was where the bowstring was, and its hands were at the mouth as if it was howling. Its appearance was inexplicably strange. A bowstring that was clearly formed from countless fine golden threads twisted together was connected to the wide mouths of the 2 humanoid creatures at both ends. Following that, a low buzzing sound rang out, and a golden energy arrow appeared on the bowstring. It was Yi Xian's most powerful ability, Fallen Sky Bow. At this moment, as Yi Xian chanted, the eyes of the skeleton clone burst out with a strange golden glow. He stretched out his right hand and directly pinched the bowstring of the energy bow in his left hand. He held the energy arrow and slowly pulled it. Buzz! In an instant, an incomparably low buzzing sound rang out, and the surrounding void seemed to be rippling with invisible waves. It was as if this arrow was only in the bowstring state, but the aura it emitted had already caused the void to tremble. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, the skeleton released the right hand that was holding the energy bowstring. In the void, an extremely sharp sound that resonated with one's eardrums rang out. With this attack, all the power in the skeleton's body was drained. It was not like this when it killed the 3-headed blood dog earlier. Its purpose was to kill the purple-armored heaven beetle in one blow. Right just as he said, Yi Xian felt a sense of urgency in his heart grow stronger and stronger. There was not much time left. The energy arrow that contained the full power of the bowstring instantly shot out. Its aura was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. It was simply unstoppable. In an instant, it seemed as if even the void was broken open. As the golden arrow shot out, a black wave like a tail flame appeared behind it. When it was so short that it was completely negligible, this golden arrow whistled through the air at an extremely fast speed and was already in front of the purple-armored heaven beetle. It's actually the Fallen Sky Bow? But how is this possible? No. In the next moment, the purple-armored heaven beetle's dizziness disappeared. When he opened his eyes and saw the golden arrow in front of him, he was instantly shocked. Whoosh! A whistling sound rang out at this moment. The purple-armored heaven beetle's eyes were filled with endless unwillingness and despair, but it was already meaningless. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion sounded. Everything that followed was without suspense. In the blink of an eye, as the golden arrow entered the purple-armored heaven beetle's body, his entire body instantly collapsed, completely exploding into a brilliant purple blood mist that spread out. Whoosh! At this moment, the body of black fog that was rushing over also waved its hand at the first moment. An incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from its body, enveloping a radius of millions of miles. Just then the majestic blood mist that had just spread out was swept up and absorbed into its body. After the battle, it would be sent into the Shenong cauldron to start the blood essence condensation. In the blink of an eye, the 12 powerful existences that had come this time, including the purple-armored heaven beetle and the other 4 primordial era almighties, all died in the battle. At this time, with the complete end of this battle, Yi Xian also had a total of 4 almighty blood essences in his hands. As for the supreme blood essences, he already had 17. Whoosh! Whoosh! A huge splash sounded as the skeletal body and the body of black fog collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that merged into the 9-colored fireball beneath their feet. Following that, the fireball spread out and turned into a sea of flames. As it rapidly shrank, it turned into a 9-colored light in the blink of an eye and rushed towards the Shenong cauldron in the void. While the remaining purple-armored heaven beetle also flipped its hand at this moment and kept the big-headed black rod into its body. Its huge body that was originally 60 million miles long had shrunk to only about 10 feet. Tight! Following that, faint rays of light shot out. They were the spoils of war scattered in the void. All sorts of resources were kept by Yi Xian in the undying world within his body. Exactly. When purple-armored Heaven Beetle raised its hand and was about to keep the Shenong cauldron in its body and leave, his expression suddenly changed. And a sense of alarm surged in his heart. Without hesitation, he shook his shoulders and directly rushed into the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored fog. Back. When he turned around, his expression was already extremely gloomy. Chapter 4595. Rumble. Hong. Long. 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 An earth-shattering roar sounded. In the distant void, 2 huge void cracks appeared. It was as if 2 terrifying curtains had pierced through the sky. Tight. Then 2 figures rushed out from the 2 terrifying cracks. One was a space blood crocodile, and the other was a subblood white tiger. The former was as red as blood, while the latter had a tuft of black hair on its forehead. Other than that, its entire body was snow-white. These 2 ferocious beasts with extraordinary bloodlines were huge in size. They were more than 100 million miles long. Compared to the 60 million miles long violent ape under the 9th transformation of the 9 transformations of the devil ape, these 2 ferocious beasts were several times bigger. Until, in terms of cultivation, both the space blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had reached the 3rd level of the supreme primordial era. They were 2 supreme beings at the pinnacle of the initial stage of the supreme primordial era. They were only 1 step away from the middle stage of the supreme primordial era. Roar! Where are they? Why do I only see a cauldron? Where are the others? Didn't they say that there were 8 supreme primordial era beings and 4 supreme beings here? Why can't I see any of them? As soon as they arrived, the 2 supreme beings of the primordial era immediately extended their spirit consciousness to cover the vast void space 100 billion miles away. However, they couldn't find the 12 supreme beings who had sent them the message at all. Although there were still many weak space beasts hibernating on the star beasts, they were all hiding in their nests, trembling and not daring to show themselves. However, the powerful spirit consciousness of the supreme being of the primordial era was able to detect everything, regardless of whether it was 100 billion miles away or in a vast void space. If the 12 supreme beings are indeed here, there's no reason they can't find them. There's a faint smell of blood in the void space. And it's not just one place but many. Seems that there was a bloody battle here. Those 12 guys couldn't have all fallen, right? Indeed. As expected of the supreme being of the primordial era, Yi Xian would absorb all the blood mist in the void space into his body after every battle. However, the 2 supreme beings could still see through the clues and roughly deduce the result. What a bunch of trash! To think that there were 4 mighty figures from the primordial era among them. They were all wiped out in less than 2 days. The battle should have just ended not long ago, and that space-raging ape didn't have time to escape. Maybe it was seriously injured and didn't know we were here. Now he's hibernating in the farmer god cauldron. He should be healing. That's right. Although this violent ape is a monster, and not only does it possess the Shenong treasured cauldron, it also refined the Shenong exotic flame in the cauldron to the level of a 9-colored flame. However, its cultivation is still weak after all. It's already not easy for it to use tricks to kill these 12 powerful existences one after another. That's good as well. You and I will benefit from it. All the gains will be divided equally between us. There's no need to leave any leftovers for those guys. There's no need to say any more. Let's capture this violent ape first. I'm afraid he doesn't know that a great disaster is about to befall him. It only takes 3 days. Let's do it. Roar. Roar. Rumble. After roaring and roaring, the space blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger attacked at the same time. They each opened their mouths and spat out a ball of energy light, shooting toward the mouth of the farmer god cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored fog. An earth-shaking roar sounded in an instant, and the Shenong cauldron, which was like a giant star, shook violently twice. As soon as it stopped, the space blood crocodile and subblood white tiger in the distance spat out 2 more energy light balls. Even the farmer god's cauldron field could only last 3 days against a full-powered attack from a supreme of the ancients and 2 supreme of the ancients. Xian had already returned to his original height. At this moment he was standing above the volcano in the central region. He looked up at the sky and the cauldron with a gloomy face. Rumble. Under his feet, the vast land in the cauldron was shaking violently. This had never happened before. We are in trouble this time. Under the joint attack of the two supreme beings, the cauldron's field can only last for 3 days. Yixian muttered softly. In this kind of situation, hiding in the cauldron is no longer the best choice. The only way is to charge out, place the cauldron above my head to protect my body, and then try my best to see if I can escape. Even if it is impossible, at least we can force the headless baby to attack. However, we can't completely rely on that guy. We have to make some preparations. At this point, Yixian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he instantly made a decision. Now under the 9th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, including the 60 million kilometer enormous body, the boundless vital energy and blood within the 1st level of cultivation, my peak strength is already at the 3rd level of the primordial era. I am only 1 level away from the 4th level. The 3rd level is only the peak of the initial stage, but the 4th level is the middle stage. The difference between the initial stage and the middle stage is still very big. Therefore, I should make use of these 3 days to break through 1 more level. This way, if the headless baby is unreliable, I will have a better chance. Anyway, this battle is very intense. Even if I break through, it will take at most 2 days. It won't take more than 3 days. After making up his mind, Yixian's eyes glinted coldly as he sat down cross-legged on one side of the volcano. Xiu xiu xiu. With a wave of his hand, there was a faint sound of something breaking through the air. In an instant, rays of light shot out and hovered in front of him. These were the cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. After a moment of hesitation, Yixian immediately activated the field of the Shenong cauldron. After compressing all the cultivation resources to the size of a baby's fist, he swallowed them into his stomach with a wave of his hand. Walala. The nascent fist ball formed from cultivation resources melted as soon as it entered his mouth. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a large river of boundless energy. As for Yixian's body, the sound of chains clanging could be heard from everywhere. Just like before, this time, there was only 1 shackle in Yixian's body. This was something that was within his expectations. Yixian didn't pay attention to it at all. He immediately focused on activating the large river of energy that had just formed in his body with all his might, circulating it through the 100 meridians in his body time and time again. The battle this time was extremely intense, even surpassing the previous few battles combined. After all, this time he was fighting against all the primordial era experts. Chapter 4596. As the great river of energy within his body completely disappeared after each cycle, fusing into Yixian's body and divine soul. Following that, with just a single attack, the incomparably thick shackles broke. When the shackles were completely broken, the system notification rang in Yixian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Level 2 Universe Supreme. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Level 2 Universe Supreme. Level 2 Universe Supreme. During the previous breakthrough, Yixian's original body was at Level 1 Universe Supreme. If he activated the power of the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to reach Level 2 Universe Supreme. If he activated the 9 changes of the ancient demon ape and reached the 9th transformation, his combat power would immediately rise to Level 2 Universe Supreme. If he added the power of the ancient demon ape bloodline into his body, his combat power would be comparable to a Level 3 Universe Supreme. This time, after another successful breakthrough, Yixian would have the strength of a Level 3 Universe Supreme after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. If he activated the 9 changes of the ancient demon ape bloodline and entered the 9th transformation, his combat power would be comparable to a Level 3 Universe Supreme. Furthermore, if one were to include the 60 million kilometer wide body, the boundless power of blood and chi would add a level of enhancement to his true combat strength. In that case, the current Yixian's strongest battle prowess was already comparable to the desolate ancient supreme being at the 4th level. A Level 3 Universe Supreme was only at the peak of the initial stage, but a Level 4 Universe Supreme was already at the middle stage. For Yixian, His chances of escaping from the two primordial supremes guarding outside the cauldron increased by 20%. Of course, even with this 20% increase, his chances of escaping were still not high. This was because before this breakthrough, his chances of escaping were only about 20%. Taking into account the 20% increase in his chances of escaping from the two supreme masters of the ancients who were guarding outside the cauldron, he only had a little more than 40% chance of escaping from the two supreme masters of the ancients who were guarding the cauldron. Not even half. He could only say that he was taking a risk. After all, this was the only choice under such circumstances. Otherwise, the situation would be even worse if he continued to hide within the farmer god cauldron. Rumble. Rumble. The earth-shattering rumbles continued to resound, and the entire space within the cauldron shook even more violently than before. Even some of the spirit birds and spirit beasts that resided in the continuous mountain range were so frightened by this continuous rumbling that they all retreated into their respective nests. They trembled as if doomsday was coming, and they didn't dare to show their heads at all. Calculating the time, Yixian had only used 2 days to achieve this breakthrough. According to his previous estimation, there was still about a day before the Shinong Cauldron's domain would be broken. But this day was meaningless to Yixian. Since they were going to rush out anyway, it was better to do it sooner rather than later. The later it was, the closer it would be to the complete destruction of the cauldron's domain. The attention of the two primordial supremes who had been trapped outside the cauldron for the past 2 days would be diverted. Their attention would be even more concentrated. Right now, it just so happened that they were halfway through the bombardment, so their attention should be at its most lax. If Yixian were to suddenly charge out while they were unprepared, then the two primordial sovereigns might not be able to do it in the first place. He reacted. In this way, he would have an additional 10% chance of escaping. In this way, there was nearly a 50% chance. It was already 50%, and it was enough to take the risk. Success or failure depends on this move. After making up his mind, Yixian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he subconsciously clenched his fists. Next, he immediately issued an order to the devouring system in his body, fully activating the interstellar coordinate jump ability, and adjusting the state to the point where it was on the verge of exploding. He did this to buy time, but in fact Yixian wasn't very confident in this. The interstellar coordinate jump ability was indeed extraordinary, but there were two powerful primordial supremes guarding outside. Moreover, Yixian had used the identity of Violent Ape to hunt in the supreme forbidden lands on the right bank of the Milky Way. He had encountered several dangers, but in the end, he had used the interstellar coordinate jump ability to instantly escape. All of this must have already spread. Even if the two powerful primordial supremes guarding outside didn't know how Yixian did it, they must be certain that he possessed a mysterious escape technique. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the other party not to have made any preparations for this. After all, they were primordial supremes. Even if they hadn't lived from the distant primordial era to the present world, the fact that they could cultivate to such a high level in the environment of the future was enough to prove the talent and methods of these two primordial supremes. Therefore, according to Yixian's speculation, the two primordial supremes guarding outside the Shinong Cauldron had most likely already set up a method to counter his interstellar coordinate jump ability in the void outside the cauldron. Or perhaps they had already prepared a method to counter this escape technique and so on. From this point of view, Yixian's current order to the devouring system in his body, allowing the system to fully activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability to the point where it was on the verge of exploding. He only had the thought of doing his best and leaving it to fate. Of course, in addition to this preparation, Yixian also transmitted a few divine senses to the corpse lantern tattoo on his left chest. Unfortunately, the headless infant corpse didn't wake up and didn't respond. This was also just a test. Right now, Yixian only hoped that if he was unable to use the interstellar coordinate jump ability, then if he were to encounter a true life and death crisis while he was forced to use the Great Void Escape, the headless infant corpse would be able to wake up in time and help him. If this hope failed, Yixian's only hope was to find an opportunity to escape the suppression of the two primordial supremes' ability to counter his escape technique after rushing out of the cauldron. In this way, he could smoothly activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability attached to the devouring system in his body. In this way, he could finally get rid of the two powerful primordial supremes. Huff! After checking all the preparations again and confirming that there were no problems, Yi Xian heaved a long sigh of relief. In the space inside the cauldron, he had already performed the bloodline ability of the 9 transformation demonic ape to the 9th state. However, his body still maintained a height of about 10 feet. Therefore, at this time, the cultivation aura emitted from his body was at the 3rd level of the primordial supremes. Boom! Rumble! At this moment, the earth-shattering roar sounded again. This meant that the 2 primordial supremes guarding outside the cauldron had just spat out another energy light ball a moment ago. This was the best time. Whoosh! Chapter 4597. In the void, the farmer god's treasure cauldron hovered in front of them like a giant star. But at this moment it was shaking violently. This situation had been going on for more than 2 days. On the left and right sides of the cauldron, there were 2 figures floating in the void 500 million miles away. These 2 figures were more than 100 million miles in size, which was extremely terrifying. They were much bigger than the farmer god's treasure cauldron, and the aura emitted from their bodies was even more terrifying. Both of them had reached the 3rd order primordial venerable realm. In other words, they were at the peak of the early stage venerable realm, only 1 step away from entering the mid-stage venerable realm. These 2 figures were the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger that had trapped Yi Xian and the farmer god's treasure cauldron 2 days ago. As time passed, the farmer god's treasure cauldron shook more violently after 2 days of bombardment. During this period, the starry sky violent ape that they had never seen before did not show up. This made the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger even more certain that it was severely injured and was in seclusion in the space inside the cauldron. As a result, they relaxed their vigilance in case the ape suddenly rushed out of the cauldron and took the opportunity to escape. After all, they had been bombarding the cauldron for 2 days. In another day, the farmer god's treasure cauldron would be broken. Even if it was just a short moment, it was enough for them to take action and drag the ape out of the space inside the cauldron. Yes, thinking of that scene, the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger were overjoyed. They had never heard of this starry sky violent ape before. After all, it was already at the peak of the early stage of supreme desolation. It was basically dormant in its cave residence, preparing to break through to the middle stage of supreme desolation. Therefore, it was impossible for them to pay much attention to the outside world. However, after receiving the purple-armored sky beetle's request for help, the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger immediately investigated. Presently, their understanding of this ferocious ape could be said to be absolutely not inferior to any existence in the various forbidden grounds on the right bank of the Milky Way. This violent ape definitely had a huge secret on him. His cultivation had increased too quickly, and he even grasped some kind of incomparably mysterious escaping secret technique. These treasures were enough to tempt even the primordial supremes. Not to mention the farmer god's treasured cauldron floating in the void right in front of him. It could be said that as long as they were able to capture the violent starry sky ape this time around, their gains would be so great that even if they split it equally between the 2 of them, it would still definitely be considered as an overflowing bowl. All of this was obviously without the slightest suspense. In less than a day, Bao Yuan would be captured. Roar! Screech! Thinking of this, the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger roared happily. Then they opened their mouths again and spat out a huge energy ball. Swish! Shoo! Boom! Rumble! An incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. These 2 huge energy balls were extremely fast, faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the mouth of the farmer god's cauldron that was 500 million miles away. The moment the 2 energy balls exploded, the 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron began to roll even more violently. Even the shaking of the entire cauldron became more and more shocking. In the void, a muffled sound of resonance could be heard because of this. The starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had been watching this scene for 2 full days. They had long since gotten tired of it, but they still felt extremely happy. They felt that with this attack, they were 1 step closer to the time of the final harvest. Just at this moment, something strange happened. Swish! An incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. From the mouth of the farmer god's cauldron that was rolling violently in the 9-colored fog, a figure rushed out. It was Yi Xian in the form of a violent ape. Originally, his body was only about 3 meters tall, but the moment he rushed out of the cauldron, he expanded to a size of 60 million kilometers, and a gigantic starry sky violent ape appeared in the void of the universe. Without the slightest hesitation, as soon as his body rushed out, the violent ape shot forward at an extremely fast speed. Swish! Almost at the same time, the farmer god's cauldron, under the command of Yi Xian, also shot out and chased after him. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived above the violent ape's head and steadily floated there. Rumble! Rumble! An earth-shattering rumble resounded. From the mouth of the treasured cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored mist, a canopy of 9-colored unusual flames appeared. It was like a raging river had suddenly spilled out and instantly poured down. In the blink of an eye, the entire body of the violent ape was enveloped within. This was Yi Xian's defensive method. With his speed, he would definitely not be able to outrun the 2 primordial sovereigns who were at the peak of the early stage. If the other party were to get close to him, even though the violent ape's physique was strong, he would still be severely injured in an instant. But now, with the farmer god's cauldron's 9-colored sea of flames turning into a curtain that enveloped his entire body, the 2 powerful primordial sovereigns wouldn't dare to get too close and launch a close-range attack. Although they were primordial sovereigns, they still didn't dare to rashly touch the farmer god's 9-colored flames. Of course, even if they couldn't kill him at close range, they could still follow behind him. Just like the previous 2 days, they could spit out balls of energy and bombard Yi Xian. However, the farmer god's cauldron was still hovering above Yi Xian's head, and his domain had not been completely destroyed. Could still hold on for about a day. In other words, within a day, these 2 powerful primordial sovereigns would definitely not be able to hurt Yi Xian. Since they couldn't attack him at close range, the balls of energy that came from afar wouldn't be able to break through the power of the farmer god's domain. This was Yi Xian's chance. As long as he could find an opportunity to escape the suppression of the 2 primordial sovereigns' ability to restrain his escape technique, he would be able to smoothly activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability attached to the system in his body. He would finally be able to get rid of these 2 powerful primordial sovereigns. Although the chance was slim, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, Yi Xian wouldn't give up. He would definitely fight for it with all his might. At this moment, as soon as he jumped out of the farmer god's cauldron, he immediately launched himself forward at full speed. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to 500 million miles away. The starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger were originally guarding the farmer god's cauldron on the left and right respectively. They were also 500 million miles away from the farmer god's cauldron. In other words, in the blink of an eye, the distance between the starry sky violent ape and the farmer god's cauldron had widened to 1 billion miles. 1 billion miles was nothing to the primordial sovereigns and primordial sovereigns. However, after all, Yi Xian was also running away at full speed, and the 2 primordial sovereigns had been attacking him with all their might for 2 days. Nearly half of the energy in their bodies had been consumed. Under such circumstances, the difference in speed between the 2 was still not small. Chapter 4598. Boom! Hong long long in the void, earth-shattering booms resounded unceasingly. The speed of the ape was too fast, comparable to a 4th-rank Desolate Era expert. Today it was pushed to the limit. Above its head was the Shenong treasured cauldron, which looked like a gigantic star. Its entire body was enveloped in a layer of Shenong 9-colored flames, which burned fiercely. In this state, even the primordial chaos void couldn't withstand the extreme speed. Although it didn't shatter, an incomparably deep rumbling sound came from the void. In the blink of an eye, the rumbles were 500 million miles away from the star-blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger. It all happened so fast that neither the star-blood crocodile nor the subblood white tiger could react in time. The 2 Nine Heavens Supremes of the ancients exclaimed in astonishment when they were around 120 million miles away from the Bao ape. Damn it! That Bao Yuan rushed out suddenly and rushed away with the farmer god cauldron. 3rd-level great being of the antiquity era? How can he be so powerful? Didn't they say that he was only a universe supreme? Damn it! He must have been making breakthroughs all the time. No wonder those 12 pieces of trash were killed one by one. What a bunch of idiots! We were fooled too. Bao Yuan wasn't hurt at all. He's already a 3rd-level great being of the antiquity era, and his real battle strength is comparable to a fourth-level great being of the middle stage. Judging from his actions after he rushed out of the cauldron, he must have been prepared. Now that he's surrounded by the nine-colored flame, I'm afraid we can't get close to kill him. It doesn't matter. One more day, the domain of the farmer god cauldron will be broken. At that time we can kill him with an energy ball from a long distance away. Remember to leave a trace of your soul for soul searching. There's a shocking secret on this Bao Yuan. Don't waste it. Roar. Screech. As the divine sense sound came out one after another, the star-blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger no longer hesitated. They each raised their heads and let out a shocking roar and a screech. Pang Da's terrifying body, which was 100 million miles long, instantly shot forward and left. One on the left and one on the right, they gave chase with all their might. Their speed was clearly much faster than the fleeing violent ape. After all, he was a powerful supreme of the Desolation era. Even if he had spent a lot of energy attacking for 2 days, he was still much stronger than the star-violent ape, whose strength was only comparable to a fourth-order Desolation era expert. Swish! Whoosh! The starry sky-blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger didn't hesitate to open their mouths and spit out energy light balls with a diameter of more than 10 million miles. In the blink of an eye, they spat out energy balls with a diameter of more than 10 million miles. In the blink of an eye, it had already blasted forward. The violent ape had a terrifying 9-colored flame sea covering its body. They didn't dare to get close to attack it. The only way was to bombard them with energy balls from afar. However, at the same time, Bao Yuan had the farmer god's treasure cauldron floating above his head, which was pouring down the power of the domain to protect him. Therefore, they had to blast away the domain power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron as soon as possible in order to have a chance of injuring Bao Yuan in front of him. As the 2 huge energy light balls blasted toward him, Yixian was instantly alarmed. Almost subconsciously, his body suddenly leaped upward, and in an instant, he was more than 20 million miles away. Swish! Swish! Boom! Rumble! The 2 energy balls were so fast that it could make people's hair stand on end. They almost brushed past the body of the violent ape, which was protected by the field of Shunnong's cauldron. They dashed forward and blasted 2 ferocious beasts into ashes along the way. After successfully avoiding the energy bombardment, Yixian's spirit was greatly boosted, and his eyes were shining brightly. When he had just rushed out of the farmer god's treasure cauldron, he was only 50% confident that he could successfully escape from the 2 powerful supreme of the Desolation era with his own strength and means. But now Yixian's confidence had skyrocketed. He was at least 70% confident, because he suddenly realized that there were some factors that he had overlooked before. He didn't take them into account at all. Now that he was surrounded by the 9-colored flame sea, the 2 supreme of the Desolation era chasing after him didn't dare to attack him at close range. They could only blast away the domain power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron, so that they could use long-range attacks to hurt Yixian. And to blast away the domain power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron, even if they kept bombarding it, it would still take a day. But now, although Yixian couldn't guarantee that he could avoid the energy light balls that bombarded him from behind every time, he was confident that he could avoid 4 or 5 of them out of every 10 times. During the short period when he wasn't hit by the energy light balls, the domain power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron would recover a little. In this way, the 2 supreme of the Desolation era chasing after him wouldn't be able to blast away the domain power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron for a day. According to Yixian's calculation, this time should be about 5 days, which was several times longer. At the same time, because he had to chase after them while continuously spitting out huge balls of light that consumed a huge amount of energy, the 2 supreme ancients behind him could not recover their energy for the time being. Moreover, this kind of consumption situation was very exhausting. Moreover, the situation would become more and more serious. In the long run, their speed would only become slower and slower. Perhaps now in the chase between Yixian and them, the 2 supreme of the Desolation era had the advantage in terms of speed. The originally huge gap of 120 million miles between them was shrinking. But the speed of this shrinking would become slower and slower as the speed of the 2 supreme of the Desolation era decreased. At most, they would be equal in a day or so. In other words, after a day, the distance between them and the Bao Yuan would no longer be shortened. Then, in the next 4 days, because the speed of the two supreme of the Desolation era would become slower and slower, the Bao Yuan would gradually gain the advantage in this regard. In other words, the distance between the two sides would slowly increase again after a day. Although the speed of increase might be very fast, at least this was an extremely exciting sign. When Yixian rushed out of the farmer god's treasure cauldron, he had already tried. The void was shrouded by a mysterious force, and the interstellar coordinate jump ability attached to the system in his body couldn't be smoothly activated at all. This mysterious force obviously came from the two powerful supreme of the Desolation era. But in this state of extreme speed, they couldn't cover a vast area, at most 5 billion miles. As long as the distance between Yixian and the two sides was more than 5 billion miles, he could instantly use the interstellar coordinate jump ability to safely escape this great void chase. It was because of all this that Yixian was sure that his chances of escaping had skyrocketed from the previous 50% to 70%. Swish! Chapter 4599. A day passed in the blink of an eye with the farmer god's treasure cauldron suspended above its head. Its body was enveloped in a sea of 9 colored flames, and its entire body was protected by the power of the farmer god's treasure cauldron. It had been fleeing at full speed behind it, the two powerful primordial masters, whose bodies were more than 100 million miles long, did not stop for a moment. While chasing with all their strength, they continued to spit out energy balls from their mouths, bombarding the mouth of the farmer god's treasure cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored fog from a long distance away. After a whole day of fleeing in the void, the distance between the two primordial masters behind the violent ape had been greatly shortened. Now, it had been shortened from the initial 120 million miles to about 400 million miles. But it was very dangerous. Whoosh! Whoosh! As their figures flashed across the void, the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger opened their bloody mouths again, each spitting out an energy ball with a diameter of more than 10 million miles. Its speed was faster than their own speed, and in the blink of an eye, it had already bombarded the front. Boom! Rumble! The two energy balls were so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived in front of the violent ape. This time, because the distance was shortened to about 4 trillion miles, the violent ape had no time to dodge. These two energy balls both bombarded the mouth of the farmer god's treasure cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored fog. An earth-shaking roar sounded, and the giant cauldron suspended above the violent ape's head shook violently in an instant. The dense 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron rolled violently, giving people a soul-stirring feeling. Roar! Screech! Whoosh whoosh! After hitting the target, the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, who were 400 million miles away, were greatly refreshed. After raising their heads and letting out a shocking roar and a violent roar, they did not hesitate at all. In an instant they opened their mouths again and spat out 2 energy balls, blasting forward. For the whole day, they had been chasing the violent ape at full speed, while doing the same action almost without stopping for a moment. The energy consumption in their bodies was too great. Even the supreme masters of the ancients could not bear it anymore. When the last 2 energy balls were spat out from the mouths of the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, their speed, which had already slowed down a little compared to a day. However, the decrease in speed was very small, to the point that it was practically undetectable. However, it was precisely this small decrease in speed that allowed them to instantly turn from a weak advantage to a weak disadvantage when compared to the fleeing raging starry skies apes in front of them. That's right, from this moment onwards, the speed of the starry sky crocodile and the subblood white tiger was already inferior to the fleeing starry sky ferocious ape. But this difference was truly too weak, and it was utterly impossible to notice. But all of the violent apes. From this moment on, the distance between the violent ape, the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger was gradually narrowing. It had entered a new state. The distance between them was slowly widening, but the margin was very small. If Bao Yuan wanted to widen the distance from 400 million miles to 5 billion miles, he still had a long way to go to get out of the suppression area of the 2 supreme masters of the remote antiquity's secret technique. According to Yixian's deduction, the field of Shenong Cauldron could only hold on for 4 more days. For Yixian was not sure if he could widen the distance to 5 billion miles in 4 days. But as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would try his best. Roar. The head let out a furious roar, and the violent ape subconsciously leaned to the right, but its speed did not change at all. Its entire body was still like an extremely fast-flowing arrow shooting forward. As it turned to the left, the Shenong cauldron, which had been hanging above the violent ape's head, also changed its position slightly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Boom! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the two abandoned stars were blasted into cosmic dust and disappeared. Roar! Boom! The first attack had hit the target, but the second attack had missed. This result made the starry sky blood crocodile and subblood white tiger extremely unwilling. They raised their heads and let out an earth-shattering roar and howl. Almost in the next moment, they activated the power in their bodies and opened their bloody mouths again. In an instant, another two huge energy balls with a diameter of 5 million miles were shot from behind. Boom! Along the way, the void of the universe let out deep, rumbling, thunderous sounds, which were terrifying to the ears. Boom! Boom! 1 day passed. During this day, the violent ape unleashed its extreme speed and increased the distance that had been shortened to 400 million li to the current 800 million li. Although they were only 400 million kilometers apart in a day, Yixian's heart was filled with excitement. This was because in the next 3 days, the starry sky blood crocodile and the inferior blood white tiger, who were following behind them, would continuously spit out balls of energy. The energy consumption in their bodies would become greater and greater, and their speed would become slower and slower. Thus, on the second day, the gap had only widened by 400 million miles. However, on the third day, it was very likely that the gap would widen by 800 million miles. Again in the future, the harvest would most likely be even more gratifying. In this way, he might have a chance to widen the distance between himself and the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger to more than 5 billion kilometers. As long as Yixian could get out of the range of the two primordial supremes' mystic arts, he would be able to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability attached to the system in his body. In the blink of an eye, he had left quietly. At that time, the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger might be so angry that they would vomit blood on the spot. One thing. In fact, even now, the two old guys already wanted to vomit blood. On the previous day, they had narrowed the gap between them and the violent ape from 120 million miles to 400 million miles. They were about to catch up, but unexpectedly, the gap between them began to widen. Unknowingly, after another day, the previous 400 million miles had been widened to 800 million miles. This result made the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger feel deeply helpless. They finally realized how difficult it was to deal with the violent ape. But it was too late now. The energy they had consumed before could not be replenished in a short time. Unless they stopped and immediately went into closed-door cultivation, they could recover in 1 or 2 days. However, the violent ape in front of them was also a powerful figure of the primordial antiquity. If they gave it a day or two, it would be long gone. At that time, even if they recovered their full strength, what was the point if they could not find its shadow? For example, Chapter 4600. In the void of the universe, a 9-colored sea of fire, which looked like a giant star, was passing by. Above the sea of fire there was a huge cauldron. More than 1 billion miles behind, 2 powerful primordial masters were closely following it. They were the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the rapid speed, their figures flashed across the void. The starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger opened their bloody mouths again. Whoosh! In an instant, each of them spat out an energy light ball with a diameter of more than 10 million miles. Its speed was faster than their own, and it blasted forward in the blink of an eye. Boom! Rumble! The speed of these 2 energy light balls was so fast that it was simply amazing. In the blink of an eye, they had already reached 1 billion miles ahead. Approaching the 9-colored sea of fire this time, the violent ape, who was surrounded by the 9-colored sea of fire, still couldn't avoid it. The 2 energy light balls both blasted at the mouth of the Shenong cauldron, which was enshrouded by the 9-colored fog. Whoosh! In the next moment, an earth-shattering roar sounded, and the giant cauldron hanging above the violent ape's head shook violently. The 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron rolled violently, which looked very thrilling. Roar! Roar! Whoosh! Whoosh! After this successful attack, the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, who were nearly 1 billion miles behind, raised their heads and let out an earth-shattering roar and roar. Without any hesitation, they immediately opened their mouths again and spat out 2 energy light balls, which blasted forward. At this moment, Yi Xian didn't know where he was at all. After rushing out of the high-level forbidden area, he found a direction and went straight ahead. Now more than 2 days had passed. He could only run forward, because if he changed his direction, no matter to the left or right, there would be a powerful primordial master chasing after him in a straight line. This was tantamount to wasting the distance that he had worked so hard to open in an instant, and it would more or less shorten the distance. In the distance to the left, there seemed to be a powerful forbidden area. Next to this forbidden area, there seemed to be a powerful star domain controlled by the survivors of the ancients. Because at this moment, as the violent ape fled in the front, the starry blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger were chasing from behind. From time to time, they would open their bloody mouths and spit out huge energy balls. The commotion in the air was too great. In the void on the left side of the front, countless ferocious beasts and survivors of the Desolation era had been alarmed. They rushed out of the edge of the forbidden area and the star domain in horror, looking in this direction. The beasts and survivors of the primordial era, who had the qualifications to come out of the star nest to watch the show under such earth-shattering circumstances, were naturally not weak. Even if they were far away, if their strength was below that of a universe knight, even if they were undying emperors, facing the terrifying supreme power of the starry blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger, although they wouldn't directly explode and die, they still couldn't escape with some internal injuries. That's right. The beings rushing out of the 2 forbidden areas and the star domain in the distance ahead of the front left side of the front were all above universe knights, whether they were the beasts or the survivors of the Desolation era. There were even a few powerful beings of the Desolation era and several survivors of the Desolation era, who were also powerful beings of the Desolation era. There were powerful beings of the Desolation era. Obviously, these 2 neighboring forbidden areas and star domains were top-tier forbidden areas and top-tier star domains. Even so, when they saw what was happening in the void on the other side of the front, the beasts and survivors of the Desolation era, whose strength was at least at the universe knight level, suddenly changed their expressions greatly. Including the dozens of powerful beings of the Desolation era and the survivors of the Desolation era, they all exclaimed in shock, "My God! What happened? 2 supreme beings of the Desolation era are chasing after us from 1 billion miles away? Starry blood crocodile. Sub-blood white tiger. I've heard that these 2 supreme beings are guarding a supreme forbidden area on the left side of the right bank of the Milky Way. I didn't expect them to show up here. 2 supreme beings of the Desolation era are alarmed at the same time. Who is the being in the gorgeous sea of flames in front of us? Shenong Cauldron? Heavens, the thing hovering above the 9-colored sea of flames is actually the Shenong Cauldron. From the looks of it, the 9-colored sea of flames enveloping the fugitive under the cauldron is most likely the Shenong 9-colored flame. This cauldron is a legendary supreme treasure, an ancient treasure with unpredictable power. No wonder 2 supreme beings of the Desolation era are chasing after it. No matter who it is, they won't give it up easily. It's strange. Judging from the power of the 9-colored sea of flames, the being hiding in the sea of flames seems to be only a 3rd-stage supreme being. Only a 3rd-stage supreme being of the Desolation era. Yet he can escape from the pursuit of 2 supreme beings of the Desolation era. This being is not to be trifled with. He must have extraordinary means. I've never heard of such a terrifying being in the supreme forbidden areas or supreme starfields on the right bank of the Milky Way. Could it be? Hiss! Violent ape. I understand now. It must be the famous violent ape, who has been hunting the beasts in the supreme forbidden areas on the right bank of the Milky Way. A few years ago, his goal was only to become an emperor. But soon he became an undying emperor, followed by a universe knight, a universe master, and a universe supreme. I heard that not long ago, even a universe supreme master had become his target. Now it seems that the rumors must be true. This violent ape already has the power of a 3rd-stage supreme being of the Desolation era. It's easy for him to kill universe supreme beings. The change of the target represents the change of his power. In just a dozen years, this mysterious violent ape's power soared from an emperor to a 3rd-stage supreme being of the Desolation era. This is Unbelievable. Public enemy. With such bloody killing methods, this violent ape must be the public enemy of all the supreme forbidden areas on the right bank of the Milky Way. Howl. Howl. In the two neighboring forbidden lands and star regions on the left, everyone rushed out of their territories and into the void outside to watch. Then they all cried out involuntarily at the same time. 1 billion miles behind Yixian, the space blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger, who were chasing after him, raised their heads and let out a roar and howl at the same time. Immediately afterward, the voice of the two old men's divine sense spread out in an instant, resounding through the void of the universe within 10 billion miles. The forbidden grounds, fierce beasts and desolation survivors in the distance, without exception, all heard it clearly. Fellow Taoists, please take action and stop this violent ape with all your might. Chapter 4601. Fellow cultivators, please do your best to stop this violent ape. That's right. We can't let him escape. He's too murderous and must be eradicated. Besides, he has a shocking secret. Once we succeed, all of our fellow cultivators, no matter if they are powerful beings, universe supreme beings, or universe masters, they will all share the secret. This violent ape was able to break through from an undying emperor to a third-level powerful being in the primordial era in just a dozen years. The secret in his hands is too shocking. Fellow cultivators, don't you want to increase your cultivation level quickly? If you want to gain something, take action immediately. We will take action to capture this violent ape. You only need to block his path for a moment. Howl. Howl. The beasts and the survivors of the primordial era in the void space on the left, especially the dozen powerful beings with the cultivation level of the primordial era, who were chasing after Yixian in the void space a billion miles away, were moved instantly. Heart with a slight change of thought, the two of them raised their heads at the same time and let out a shocking roar and howl. Then, the two old men's voices were transmitted instantly, echoing in the void space within a billion miles. The beasts and the survivors of the primordial era in the left, without exception, all heard it clearly. At this moment, Yixian's heart sank to the bottom. His previous deduction was not wrong. It had already been 2 days since they had arrived here. According to the development of the situation in the past 2 days, the blood crocodile and the white tiger, who were chasing closely behind him, were still spurting out energy light balls to bombard the Shenong cauldron. Also, it would take another 3 to 4 days to temporarily break the power of the domain of the Shenong cauldron. But now the distance between Yixian and them had been widened to about 1 billion miles. Also, in about 3 days this distance would exceed 5 billion miles. Next, by then, Yixian would have escaped the range of the two supreme beings' secret techniques. Once he activated the interstellar coordinate jumping ability attached to the system in his body, he would be able to escape smoothly in an instant. Unfortunately, man's calculations were not as good as fate. Everything had been planned for a long time, but the sudden appearance of the astral beasts and the survivors of the primordial era on the left side immediately triggered a change. Among the space beasts and the remains of the desolation era, there were a total of 11 beasts that emitted the aura of the desolation era. The strongest one among them was even a rank 8 desolation era almighty. He was a late-stage almighty, only one step away from the peak stage 9 great perfection almighty. Although they were far to the left, they were still in front. If they attacked, they would be able to block Yixian's path. However, Yixian couldn't change his direction at all. He was a billion miles away from the two primordial supremes chasing after him. If he turned to the right at a 90-degree angle, although he could avoid the 11 primordial supremes on the left, the distance between him and the astral blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger behind him would be instantly shortened by 700 to 800 million miles. Such a result was almost hopeless for Yixian, because in the remaining 3 to 4 days, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to widen the distance to 5 billion miles, but if he only turned to the right at a 45-degree angle, he wouldn't be able to avoid the 11 powerful primordial supremes on the left side. As a result, there were interceptions in front and pursuers behind. Once Yixian's figure stopped, the starry sky blood crocodile and the inferior blood white tiger, who were only a billion kilometers away, would instantly catch up. At that time, Yixian wouldn't have the slightest chance of escaping. Roar! These thoughts flashed across the sea like lightning. Bao Yuan, whose mind had already sunk to the bottom of the valley, immediately raised his head and let out a shocking roar. revealing endless unwillingness. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this time, the 11 primordial supremes on the left side of the void finally moved. Their speed was extremely fast. Their figures all turned into streaks of light and blasted in front of Bao Yuan's path to intercept him. What should come? Came in the end. Most after the last glimmer of hope was destroyed, Yixian's heart suddenly sank again, and he made a choice in an instant. Swoosh! A sharp sound broke through the air. The astral violent ape, which was originally rushing forward at an extremely fast speed, directly changed direction at this moment, and blasted forward at a 90-degree angle to the right side of the void. This choice was very helpless. The distance between Bao Yuan and Bao Yuan, which was nearly 1 billion miles, was rapidly shortened by the astral blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger behind him in a short period of time, to about 200 to 300 million miles. Such a result was too miserable, and simply unbearable. But it was better than rushing forward directly, and after a short while, being stopped halfway by the 11 powerful primordial supremes, and then being caught up by the astral blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger behind him in an instant. In short, there is still a chance of survival if you turn 90 degrees to the right to escape, but if you go straight ahead, there is no chance of survival. I, the Star Lord, hereby swear that if I don't die today in the future, I will torture and kill you one by one. Only then will my hatred in my heart disappear. Roar! At this moment, as his figure turned 90 degrees to the right, Yixian's indignant and unwilling voice sounded in the cosmic void within a radius of billions of miles. At this time, the 11 primordial supremes in the distance, who had already moved forward and were considered to be involved in this matter, didn't pay attention to him at all. They were sure that Bao Yuan couldn't escape today. No matter how many harsh words they said, it was just nonsense and had no meaning at all. While the astral blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, who were chasing closely behind, were relieved when they saw that Bao Yuan was forced to turn 90 degrees to the right. They immediately changed their direction and took a shortcut to catch up with Bao Yuan. At this moment, their originally tense heartstrings were completely relaxed, because as Bao Yuan was forced to turn helplessly, the distance between them, which had been widened to nearly 11 billion miles, would be shortened again in an instant to about 200 million miles. If at this time, as long as they gritted their teeth and tried their best, and no longer spouted energy balls to bombard Bao Yuan, they would be able to catch up with Bao Yuan in one day at most. Then they would attack Bao Yuan for another day, and they would be able to break through the power field of Shinong's treasured cauldron and capture Bao Yuan alive. Time passed slowly. As Bao Yuan turned around, the 11 primordial supremes, who wanted to intercept Bao Yuan, were left far behind. However, they didn't give up and kept following Bao Yuan closely, as if they wanted to get a share of the action. The astral blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had also caught up with Bao Yuan. As they didn't spit out energy balls during this time, their speed had increased, so the distance between them and Bao Yuan had been shortened to only about 100 million miles. Chapter 4602. Unexpectedly, Yixian encountered a new enemy. 11 powerful primordial era supreme beings appeared in the space in front of him on the left. They directly cut through and blocked Yixian's path, forcing him to turn 90 degrees to the right. Such as, although he managed to leave the 11 primordial era experts far behind him, the distance between him and the star blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, which was originally about 1 billion miles, was quickly shortened to only about 100 million miles. The price was too painful. Yixian was almost mad with anger. No, I don't have much time. With such a weak speed advantage, I won't be able to escape 5 billion miles in 3 days. Murmuring, Bao Yuan moved forward rapidly while thinking of a countermeasure. Very soon, he gritted his teeth and made a decision. Since it's like this, I'll make a last stand. I'll take advantage of this time to make another breakthrough. After fighting 4 powerful ancients in a row, plus the small improvement in my state of mind, the last breakthrough is not at all at my limit. In fact, it's far from it. Plus, I've been running with all my strength for 2 days, and I've been dealing with the bombardment of the Shinong cauldron from time to time. The gains from the last breakthrough have basically been completely integrated into my body and divine soul. In this case, if nothing unexpected happens, I'll be able to make another breakthrough in just 1 day. In this way, my peak battle strength will reach the 5th level of the ancients. Although my battle strength has only increased by 1 level, my speed will be greatly improved. During this process, the speed of the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger, which are following me closely, will become slower and slower. Meanwhile, my cultivation base will once again break through to the next level. As a result, my advantage in speed will become more obvious. There are only 2 days left. Even if I can't escape 5 billion kilometers, 3 to 4 billion kilometers won't be a problem. In this way, after the Shinnon Cauldron's domain is temporarily broken, I'll grit my teeth and have the hope of escaping 5 billion kilometers away. It's better than not having any hope at all. As for the day of the breakthrough, I'll shrink the Shinnon Cauldron a little. In this way, even without my control, its speed won't be reduced too much because of its small size. More importantly, after its size is reduced, the probability of being bombarded may also decrease. In this way, I may be able to buy more than 3 days. After saying that, Yi Xian's eyes instantly lit up. He didn't hesitate any longer, and with a thought, his entire body transformed into a ray of light. Bringing along the entire sea of 9 colored flames that enveloped his body, he followed the mouth of the Shinnon Cauldron that was filled with 9 colored mist, and charged into the space within the cauldron. Buzz! Almost at the same time, he activated the power of the Shinnon Cauldron's domain and adjusted it. Its originally massive size of over 40 million kilometers shrank by quite a few times, until it was only about 1 million kilometers wide. Immediately after, Yi Xian adjusted the power of the cauldron's field to the front, moving at an extremely fast speed in a straight line. After that, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He didn't care about anything else and immediately sat down cross-legged on one side of the volcano in the central region. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Due to the urgency of the moment, he did not hesitate at all. With a wave of his hand, a faint sound of breaking through the air rang out. In an instant, rays of light shot out and hovered around him. It was the cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body to start this breakthrough. Then, Yi Xian immediately activated the field of the Shinnon Cauldron, and compressed all the cultivation resources to the size of a nascent soul fist. He swallowed them into his stomach with a wave of his hand. Walala! When the nascent soul fist ball condensed from cultivation resources entered his mouth, the expected clanking sound of the chains came from his body. All the resources turned into a majestic energy river in an instant. And this time, the shackles that appeared were the same as before. There was only one. Here as expected, Yi Xian did not pay attention to it. He immediately focused and activated the energy river that had just formed in his body with all his might. He started to circulate it in his meridians again and again. Just as he'd expected, there weren't many obstacles to the breakthrough this time. In just a day's time, the large river of energy that had formed within Yi Xian's body had been completely refined. Following that, the great river of energy within his body completely disappeared after each cycle, fusing into Yi Xian's body and divine soul. Following that, with just a single attack, the incomparably thick shackles were broken. When the shackles completely broke, the expected system prompt sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu technique. Current realm. Level 3 Universe Supreme. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body energy. Current realm. Level 3 Universe Supreme. Level 3 Universe Supreme was the peak of the initial stage of this realm. During the previous breakthrough, Yi Xian's original body's cultivation base was at the second level of the Universe Supreme. If he activated the power of the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to reach level 3 Universe Supreme. If he activated the 9 transformations of the ancient demon ape and reached the 9th transformation, his battle power would immediately soar to level 3 Universe Supreme. If coupled with the majestic energy and blood in his body, his battle power would be comparable to a level 4 Universe Supreme. And this time, after another successful breakthrough, Yi Xian would instantly possess the strength of a level 4 Universe Supreme after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. If he activated the 9 transformations of the ancient demon ape bloodline, and directly entered the 9th transformation, his battle power would be comparable to a level 4 Universe Supreme. Then taking into account the majestic energy and blood in his body that was 60 million miles long, his battle power would increase by 1 level. In the end, the strongest battle prowess that Yi Xian could display right now was already on par with the primordial era's supreme expert at the 5th step. But what he was interested in now was not the increase in battle power, because there were 2 powerful primordial supremes chasing after him. Not to mention the increase of 1 level, even if it was 2 or 3 levels it would not be significant. But the change in his speed brought by this 1 level of battle power made Yi Xian extremely happy. Although level 5 Universe Supreme and level 4 Universe Supreme were only mid-level primordial supremes, level 4 Universe Supreme was only the beginning of the mid-level primordial supremes realm. However, level 5 Universe Supreme was firmly in the mid-level primordial supremes realm, and in terms of speed it was much faster. Rumble! Rumble! Earth-shaking rumbles continued to resound, and the space inside the cauldron under him shook even more violently than before. Just as he opened his eyes, an earth-shattering boom suddenly came from the space inside the cauldron. It was obvious that the treasured cauldron had been hit again. However, Yi Xian was not anxious, and his eyes shone brightly. Chapter 4603. Another day has passed. I wonder if the Shenong cauldron has been able to close the distance of 100 million li in the past day, or if it has widened a little more. Although he knew that this was basically impossible, because without his control, the Shenong cauldron was being chased by 2 powerful primordial supremes. It was already good enough that the distance between them was not shortened. It was a bit too much to hope that it could increase the distance between them. With a touch of expectation, Yi Xian quickly activated the power of the field to investigate the situation outside the cauldron. It didn't matter if he didn't look, but as soon as he looked he was stunned. Then his expression changed slightly, and he shook his head with a bitter smile as expected. After losing his control, the Shenong cauldron had shrunk in size, but its speed was not slow, but it was still getting closer. This might be because the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had seen through Yi Xian's plan, so the frequency of their bombardment of the energy balls decreased, causing their speed to increase slightly. At this time it was meaningless to investigate the reason because the facts were the facts. Originally, the distance between the cauldron and the starry sky blood crocodile, and the subblood white tiger chasing behind it was more than 110 million miles. But now, after a day, this distance had been shortened by more than half. Now the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger were only 20 million miles away from the cauldron. Also fortunately, Yi Xian was now in seclusion, otherwise, the cauldron would have been intercepted by the starry blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger in about 4 hours, and then the situation would be even worse. Although the distance has been shortened to about 20 million miles, there are still 3 days. With a flash of light, Yi Xian murmured softly, "Now that I have broken through again and have the speed of a 5th stage supreme being, I will definitely be able to increase the distance again in 3 days. Speaking of this, Yi Xian no longer hesitated. His figure flashed, and in an instant, he shot into the sky of the space inside the cauldron, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In the void of the universe, the 11 powerful beings of the remote antiquity era were nowhere to be seen. Ever since Yi Xian turned 90 degrees to the right, they were left behind in an instant. But now the heaven blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger were only 20 million miles away from the farmer god cauldron. Whoosh! Show! The figures of the 2 primordial supremes streaked across the void. The star blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger opened their bloody mouths again. In an instant they each spat out an energy ball with a diameter of more than 10 million miles. Speed in the blink of an eye, they blasted forward. Boom! Rumble! The speed of the 2 energy balls was shockingly fast. It was simply shocking. In the blink of an eye, they were already 1 billion miles away. Although the size of the cauldron had shrunk to only 1 million miles, but this time it still couldn't avoid them. The 2 energy balls both blasted into the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, which was filled with 9-colored fog. Almost in the next moment, an earth-shattering roar sounded. The giant cauldron shook violently in an instant. The dense 9-colored fog at the mouth of the cauldron tumbled violently, looking very thrilling. Roar! Screech! There are still 20 million miles. At most we can catch up in 2 hours. At that time, once we force the cauldron to stop, we can't let the violent ape escape. One day, the violent ape has been in the space inside the cauldron for a day. This guy is too cunning. He must be up to something again. We must speed up the progress. After the successful attack, The Heaven Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger were in high spirits. They each raised their heads and let out an earth-shattering roar and a violent howl. Whoosh! Rumble! Almost at the same moment, from the mouth of the farmer god cauldron, which was filled with 9-colored fog, a ray of light shot out. It expanded against the wind, and in an instant, it turned into a 60 million miles long star sky violent ape. It was Yi Xian. Following that, as the figure of the violent ape appeared, a 9-colored sea of flames poured out from the cauldron, enveloping the huge body of the violent ape in the blink of an eye. While the violent ape didn't stop for a moment, as soon as it rushed out of the cauldron, it rushed forward at an extremely fast speed. The farmer god cauldron, which was originally uncontrolled, also expanded in an instant, reaching its full form of 40 million miles. It suspended above the violent ape's head, pouring out an invisible force field to protect the violent ape's body. While, in the blink of an eye, the violent ape, who rushed out of the cauldron, was no longer in danger. At close range, with the 9-colored sea of flames protecting the body, even the remote ancient supreme didn't dare to touch it easily. While with the long-distance energy bombardment and the protection of the farmer god's treasure cauldron's invisible force field, unless the cauldron's force field was temporarily broken, no matter how many energy balls bombarded it, it would not be able to shake the ape. At least, according to Yi Xian's prediction, he would be safe for 3 days. At this moment, as the figure of the violent ape reappeared after a day, the Star-Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger, who were following closely behind, were stunned. Then the voice of the divine sense sounded, revealing endless horror. What happened? The aura emanating from the ape's body is actually that of a fourth-order primordial god? Damn it, after only 1 day, he actually broke through after entering the space inside the cauldron. This kind of speed is simply outrageous. He really has a shocking secret. He's a rank 4 mighty figure, and with the boundless blood essence within his massive body, this ferocious ape's true battle prowess is already comparable to a rank 5 mighty figure. Damn it, his speed has increased yet again. I can't continue like this. The distance that was just closed is going to be pulled apart again very soon. Whatever, before the distance is pulled apart, attack with all our strength. We must force him to stop and intercept him. Otherwise, in a few days we will be in a passive situation again. Don't hold back anymore. Attack with all your strength. The final moment is coming ahead of time. Violent ape, you force me to do this. Roar. Screech. In horror, the Star-Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger roared again and again. In the end, they let out earth-shattering roars and howls together. Without hesitation, they opened their bloody mouths at once. Whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rumble. Rumble. Boom. The earth-shattering sound of something breaking through the air rang out. It was extremely sharp, and it was followed by the sound of thunder that erupted in the void due to the resonance. This time the Star-Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger were obviously going all out. They didn't spit out the energy balls one by one, but dozens of them in an instant. The 2 supreme masters of the ancients put all their strength together, and for a moment nearly 100 energy balls were shot out from behind. Hiss! Almost at the same time, a crisp sound of ripping cloth suddenly came from the right side 10 billion miles away. Void. Chapter 4604. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rumble. Rumble. The earth-shattering sound of something breaking through the air rang out. It was extremely sharp, and it was followed by the sound of thunder that erupted in the void due to the resonance. The Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger went all out. They didn't spit out the energy balls one by one anymore. Together there were almost 100 energy balls shooting from behind. The movement was too shocking. The violent ape, who was 20 million miles away, looked back subconsciously and was almost scared out of his wits. Although the Hollow Blood Crocodile and the Subblood White Tiger were powerful primordial supremes, it was still difficult for them to withstand dozens of such huge energy balls at once. They would most likely have to pay a certain price and suffer some backlash afterwards. However, they didn't have time to care about this. As they said, all of this was forced by Yi Xian. Counting the 2 primordial supremes had been chasing after them for more than 3 days now. During these 3 days, they had done everything they could to shorten the distance between them and the primordial supremes to just 20 million miles. However, when they were about to succeed, they suddenly found that the violent ape had broken through another level. The gap between them would soon be widened again. Even the supreme ancients couldn't bear such a huge psychological gap. In a moment of excitement, the two supreme ancients gritted their teeth and fought with all their might. Yixian wasn't able to predict this at all. Now, in the face of such a critical situation, he could only sigh in his heart. There was no way to resolve this. There was nothing he could do. Close to 100 balls of energy shot over, each of which was tens of millions of kilometers in size. Coupled with the current distance between the two of them, there was only a distance of 20 million kilometers between them. Without a doubt, at least half of these energy balls would explode within the area covered by the Shinong Cauldron's invisible domain. While, even if the others missed when the energy balls exploded, they would also be detonated by the raging energy. In other words, almost 100 energy balls would all explode. If nothing unexpected happened, the void within a radius of 10 billion miles would most likely shatter inch by inch. Even if the power of the primordial void was strong, it would recover soon. However, during the time when the void was shattered, even if the field of the Shinong Cauldron didn't collapse, he and the violent ape would be trapped here and couldn't move forward for the time being. Even though this time was very short, it was more than enough time for the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger. After all, they were only 20 million miles away from the violent ape. For the powerful supreme ancients, if the violent ape, who was running in the front, stopped, the blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger could catch up with them in an instant. Alas! As he sighed in his heart, Yixian simply stopped. His body transformed into a ray of light, as he directly entered the cauldron that was filled with 9-colored mist, and entered the space within the cauldron. At the same time, he also activated the field of the Shinong Cauldron and reduced its size to only 1,000,000 miles. Anyway, it was useless to escape. Once the energy balls exploded, the void within 10 billion miles would shatter, and they could no longer move forward. Reverse, it was better to retreat into the cauldron and reduce its size. In this way, the area of the cauldron would be smaller, and they might be able to hold on for a little longer. This was just a temporary measure. It couldn't solve the current crisis at all. In fact, the real crisis would come soon. Once the energy balls exploded, the shattered void would be restored to its original state by the powerful primordial void law. That would be the moment when Yixian was in great trouble. At that time, the two powerful supreme ancients would sandwich the cauldron in the middle and bombard it at close range. At most, he would be dragged out of the space inside the cauldron in one day. Screech! He's not running anymore. Everything is finally over. Boom! Boom! Seeing the violent ape stop, he retreated into the space inside the cauldron again. He even reduced the size of the cauldron to 1,000,000 miles and stopped in the void in front of him. This, obviously, he had given up on escaping and was going to take this round of bombardment head-on. Star the hollow blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger were overjoyed. They raised their heads and let out shocking roars and howls. While, at this time, the hundreds of energy light balls that shot out finally arrived. Earth-shattering explosions rang out densely, accompanied by faint cracking sounds of the void being torn apart inch by inch. In the blink of an eye, the vast space within a radius of 10 billion miles was engulfed in the raging energy. The Shinong Cauldron was like a small boat on the tip of a huge wave, swaying in the wind and rain. At this time, the hollow blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had retreated to 5 billion miles away. They were not worried about the violent ape's escape, because before the void was restored, they couldn't move forward at all. With that time, they could cover the distance of 5 billion miles in a few seconds. Hiss! Almost at the same time, 10 billion miles away on the right side of the cauldron, a crisp sound of ripping silk suddenly came from the void. A huge crack was torn open in the void, and a huge claw stretched out from it. It was only a single claw, and it wasn't a complete claw. It was only a single claw, yet its size was already 25 million kilometers long. It was simply unimaginable. Almost subconsciously, when this crisp sound of ripping silk came, the hollow blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger all turned to look at it. Next, in an instant, they opened their mouths wide at the same time, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A claw of a complete claw was 50 million miles long, which was the same size as their entire bodies. Then, how huge was the entire body of this existence that was about to descend? An entire star field? Thousands or even trillions of miles away. If that was really the case, then how terrifying would his cultivation be? Didi. Shocked, the hollow-blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger trembled slightly and murmured softly, revealing endless horror. Among the ferocious beasts of the starry sky, which race has such a huge body? Could it be the void giant turtle? The void giant turtle? Since ancient times there has only been one. Didn't it fall in the great battle of the primordial era? It can't be him. Whoosh! Almost in the next moment a black light flashed and the giant claw, which was supposed to be very far away, came close to them in the blink of an eye, together with the huge crack in the void. Sharp claw with a sharp sound of breaking the air. The hollow-blood crocodile's huge body exploded with a bang, and its body and soul were destroyed. Light. Chapter 4605. Supreme of the Ancients at the peak of the 9th stage? That's a half-step heavenly Tao. Void giant tortoise, it's you. You're fine from the battle of the ancients. In the blink of an eye, the celestial blood crocodile's body exploded. As the claw moved, the subblood white tiger finally sensed the cultivation base of the claw's owner and guessed his identity in an instant. A powerful third-stage supreme was killed as easily as crushing an ant. It was definitely a supreme of the ancients at the peak of the 9th stage. It was only slightly weaker than the primeval heaven's eye. Such a terrifying existence was rare even in the untainted world, and there were only a few of them in the current era. In addition to its massive body, a single claw was at least 50 million miles long. Apart from the void giant tortoise from back then, he really couldn't think of anyone else. Hiss! Hiss! The existence in the crack didn't respond to the subblood white tiger's subconscious exclamation. It simply ignored the subblood white tiger. However, the claw that came out of the crack was moving left and right. In an instant, a huge crack that was hundreds of billions of miles long appeared in the void, accompanied by the crisp sound of cracking. This time, the existence in the crack stretched out its entire right forelimb. It was like a small star field, occupying the sky and earth. It was indeed a tortoise claw. In the distance, the 11 primordial age experts who had finally caught up came to an abrupt halt at the sight of this. Immediately afterward, his body trembled violently. Without pausing for a moment, he turned around and fled in the direction he came from. Even the starry blood crocodile was killed by a single claw. They were only ancients and they were nothing in the hands of that existence. Even if they were tens of billions of miles away, that existence could still kill them with a single claw if it wanted to. As the indescribably gargantuan tortoise claw extended out of the spatial rift, the subblood white tiger shuddered as it returned to its senses. In the next moment he shrunk his neck, and without making a single sound, he turned around and fled in the opposite direction at top speed. Roar! It was also at this moment that an extremely deep roar resounded from the black crack that was 100 billion kilometers wide. It was filled with displeasure. The existence in the crack seemed to be extremely displeased that it couldn't tear a large enough crack in the primordial void to allow its main body to arrive here. Hum! In the next moment, the terrifying tortoise claw that was hundreds of billions of miles long stretched out of the crack and shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Obviously, the existence in the crack had lost its patience and couldn't tear a large enough crack in the primordial void in a short period of time. Therefore it chose to shrink its body. It was extremely swift. In merely a breath of time, a figure had emerged from the enormous spatial rift. It was completely pitch black, and it emanated an extremely powerful, ancient and heavy aura. It was at least 100 billion kilometers in size. However, this was only the size of one of its forelimbs that had extended out of the void fissure. It was evident that its complete form was at least several trillion miles wide. Even a normal star area wouldn't be that vast. The existence that rushed out of the crack was the void giant tortoise. After being rescued by Yi Xian and the headless corpse from the mysterious void fragment, the void giant tortoise returned to the second universe of the three main planes of the universe and hibernated in the ancestral land of the Nether Tortoise clan, one of the 10 great clans of the second universe, to recover. Now it seemed that its injuries had completely healed. Moreover, since it had already arrived here, the Nether Tortoise clan had most likely entered the primordial void, or perhaps they were hibernating in an unknown void connected to it. Swish! As soon as his figure rushed out of the void crack, The void giant turtle immediately stretched out its neck. In an instant, a sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. The starry sky blood crocodile that had been killed by his finger earlier, after its body exploded, all of the boundless chi and blood that had spread out was instantly destroyed. It entered the giant tortoise's mouth and was directly swallowed by it. It seemed that it was also hunting. Starry sky ferocious beasts originally devoured each other to strip the vitality of other existences and turn it into resources to improve its own cultivation. However, the void giant tortoise was already at the peak of supreme primordial level 9, so its level was too high. Therefore, even the vitality of a supreme primordial level 3 was not of much use to it after it had completely devoured it. If Yixian saw this scene, he would probably go crazy on the spot. To him, this was a supreme blood essence that he did not even dare to dream of, but it was gone in the blink of an eye. More importantly, it did not have any obvious effect on the void giant tortoise. It was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. After doing all this, the void giant tortoise lazily turned its head and looked in the direction where the sub-blood white tiger had fled. As for the 11 primordial level ones, although they had hurriedly turned around and fled from a distance, the void giant tortoise had also sensed them, but it was not interested in them. Even if it could kill them all with a raise of its claw, it was too lazy to do so. It was already at the peak of supreme primordial level 9. Even the vitality of a supreme primordial level 3 was not of much use to it, let alone the primordial level ones. At this moment, if Yixian knew what the void giant tortoise was thinking, he would probably vomit blood on the spot. However, although the primordial level ones were no longer of interest to the void giant tortoise, the primordial level ones were different. Even if the vitality of a supreme primordial level 2 was not of much use to it, a mosquito's leg was still meat. Therefore, the void giant tortoise would definitely not let go of this sub-blood white tiger. All this took place in just 1 or 2 breaths of time. Although the sub-blood white tiger was fast, it had only fled 10 billion miles away in such a short time. You can't escape. At this moment, an incomparably deep voice with endless laziness rang out, but it instantly covered the boundless void as far as the eye could see. Very far away, the 2 top-grade forbidden zones and the 2 top-grade supreme primordial stars happened to be in this area. In the supreme primordial star region, countless ferocious beasts and primordial survivors instantly prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling. Screech! It seemed to have realized that it was about to die, and there was no suspense at all. There was no chance of survival at all. The sub-blood white tiger that was fleeing at full speed suddenly stopped, raised its head, and let out an unwilling roar. Whoosh! An ear-piercing noise echoed. From 10 billion kilometers away, the void tortoise didn't even move half a step. It merely raised its left forelimb and slashed out with one of its claws. Bang! Chapter 4606. The Interior of the Farmer God Cauldron. Boom! Rumble! Earth-shattering rumbling sounds rang out endlessly. Ever since the explosion, they hadn't stopped. The entire space within the cauldron trembled violently. Yixian understood that this was because the cauldron's main body had shrunk to a size of only 1,000,000 kilometers. At this moment, just as the terrifying energy raging outside was like a small boat bobbing up and down in the waves, Yixian had shrunk the size of the violent ape to a height of about 3 meters. He sat cross-legged above the volcano in the central domain, his expression extremely gloomy. Yixian was confident in the power of the Shinong Cauldron's domain. Although nearly 100 energy balls exploded at the same time in this wave of attacks, it was absolutely impossible for the Shinong Cauldron's domain to collapse just like that. However, after this havoc, the Farmer God Cauldron's field, which was already on the brink of collapse, was in even more danger. According to Yixian's calculations, after this wave of attacks was over, the power field of the Shinong Cauldron would at most be able to hold on for half a day before it was broken by the starry blood crocodile and the inferior blood white tiger. Although he would be able to slowly recover and return to his peak state in at most a month, to Yixian, this kind of temporary collapse of the domain's power was absolutely fatal. Not to mention a month, even a few breaths' time was enough for the starry blood crocodile and the sub-blood white tiger to drag him out of the cauldron. At this moment, Yixian was truly at his wits' end. He had exhausted all his means, but he couldn't escape at all. After all, there were 2 powerful primordial supremes. With his current cultivation, even if he used the Skyfall Bow with all his strength, he could only seriously injure one of them at most. However, if that happened, Yi Xian would have no chance of turning the tables. With all the energy in his body drained, even if they stopped chasing him, he couldn't escape. He wouldn't do that unless it was absolutely necessary. Of course, if there was no chance of survival, Yi Xian wouldn't hesitate at all. He would use the skyfall bow before he died and try to drag one of them down with him. All this seemed to take a long time, but in fact only a few breaths' time had passed. During this short period of time, Yi Xian's emotions had fluctuated several times. Finally, a sharp light flashed in his eyes as he made his final decision. Instead of hiding in the cauldron and waiting for the farmer god cauldron's field to be destroyed and then dragged out by those two guys, it's better to take the initiative and rush out of the cauldron. In this way, I can guarantee that the farmer god cauldron's field won't be destroyed, and can still hold on for half a day. Although this will undoubtedly mean facing the two powerful primordial supremes, this is something that was bound to happen sooner or later. It's better to be early than late. Now is the final battle. Let's see if the headless infant corpse can be relied on in the most critical moment of life and death. If the answer is yes, then everything will be solved. If the answer is no, then it's only half a day earlier. After rushing out of the cauldron's space, I can still use the skyfall bow to give as much as I can when all hope is lost. I can drag one of them down with me. After saying that, Yi Xian didn't say anything else. A cold light flashed in his eyes and his expression became extremely resolute. Even the body of the violent ape emitted an incomparably ferocious aura with a loud bang. At this moment, Bao Yuan's aura was incomparably resolute. He was clearly prepared to fight to the death. The battle for supremacy in the starry sky had always been like this. Either live or die, what was there to be conflicted about? This thought flashed through his mind. At this moment, Yi Xian's entire body and mind were relaxed. Imperceptibly, his state of mind had a small sublimation. This meant that he could break through again. The opportunity had come. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. Hiss! Shaking his head, he smiled bitterly and threw the thought of breaking through into seclusion to the back of his mind. Bao Yuan raised his head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. Immediately after, his figure shot out and directly shot into the sky above the cauldron's space, disappearing without a trace in an instant. He couldn't see it. Outside the Shinong cauldron, in the primordial void, the raging energy balls that the starry sky blood crocodile and the subblood white tiger had spat out had gradually stopped. Although the rumbling sound was still there, it was already sparse. However, with the Shinong cauldron as the center, the vast expanse of primordial space within a radius of 10 billion kilometers had already shattered inch by inch. However, this kind of shattering was obviously only temporary. At this moment, as the raging energy of the nearly 100 energy balls gradually dissipated, the shattered space within a radius of 10 billion kilometers was being visibly healed by the powerful power of the laws of the primordial world. Speed it quickly healed. It was the same for the huge spatial rift that the void giant turtle had rushed out of in the distance. However, this spatial rift was too big, and it wasn't an inch of fine fragmentation. Instead, it was directly torn open by a powerful force. Therefore, even under the influence of the powerful primordial law, the recovery was relatively slow. It would take at least half a day for it to completely heal. Bang! At this moment in the void 10 billion kilometers away, a heaven-shaking bang sounded, followed by a huge cloud of blood mist spreading out. Its momentum was majestic, and in the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped the void within 100 million kilometers. After all, the subblood white tiger's body was originally 50 million kilometers long. At this moment, its body was slashed apart by the void giant turtle's finger, and it instantly spread out 100 million kilometers. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the Shinong cauldron, which had shrunk to only 1 million kilometers in size, emitted a faint sound of breaking through the air from the mouth of the cauldron that was enshrouded in 9-colored mist. A figure that was only about 3 meters tall, with a shocking and ferocious aura, came out from the mouth of the cauldron. He rushed out from the cauldron. It was Yi Xian in the form of a violent ape. When Yi Xian heard the loud bang in the distance, he paused for a moment, and then subconsciously turned his head to look. The next moment, his body shook violently, and his expression changed drastically. He gasped, and even his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He had come just in time to see the subblood white tiger's body explode. Moreover, it was slashed apart by a terrifyingly huge void giant turtle that lightly stretched out its claw. Wait, void giant turtle? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yixian recognized the giant turtle immediately. Wasn't it the turtle that he and the headless baby corpse had rescued from the mysterious fragment of the void? What on earth happened? Why did everything change in the blink of an eye? I saw the subblood white tiger's body explode with my own eyes, but what about the starry blood crocodile? Yixian looked around, but not only did he not see the starry blood crocodile, but he also did not see the blood crocodile after its body exploded. At the same time, after slashing the subblood white tiger with its finger, the void giant turtle raised its neck and pretended to suck in the blood. Chapter 4607. Whoosh! A sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out, and before he finished speaking, Yixian's figure had already shot forward. At the same time, the Shenong cauldron followed closely behind, suspended above his head. Huff! A distance of more than 10 billion kilometers was originally nothing to his current cultivation level of the third level of the primordial era. However, everything in front of him was too urgent, and if he was half a step late it would be bad news. Thus Yixian didn't hesitate in the slightest. He activated the Shenong cauldron suspended above his head. In an instant, a 9-colored sea of flames rushed out of the cauldron, instantly expanding to thousands of miles away, sweeping forward. Although the void tortoise's cultivation had already recovered and was now a peak supreme of the 9th stage of the desolate era, which was half a step into the heavenly Tao, he still didn't dare to rashly touch the Shenong 9-colored flame. Otherwise he wouldn't die. Although it would not kill it, the pain of the flesh was unavoidable. Sensing the approaching danger, the void tortoise stopped absorbing the majestic blood and qi, and subconsciously turned its head to look back. When it saw Yixian, it was obviously stunned for a moment, and then a trace of anger burst out of its eyes. Almost at the same time, the void tortoise's deep, muffled voice rang out. "What are you doing, little guy? You actually attacked me? Are you itching for a beating?" As his divine sense voice was transmitted, his terrifying body that was over 100 billion miles long also moved upward to avoid the 9-colored sea of flames that was whistling toward him. Whoosh! Seeing this scene, Yixian was overjoyed. He did not bother to answer the void giant turtle's words at all. His figure flashed, and he had already arrived in front of it. With a wave of his hand, an invisible suction force spread out, enveloping the void of the universe for hundreds of millions of miles. In the blink of an eye, all the blood and qi of the subblood white tiger's body exploded was wrapped up. After all, the subblood white tiger was a powerful primordial supreme. Its body was 50 million miles long, so the blood and qi of its body was naturally extremely majestic. It was simply outrageous. Therefore, even if it was Yixian, it would still take him a certain amount of time to absorb all of the boundless qi and blood. However, for the void tortoise, it was something that could be done in an instant. This boundless qi and blood had just been swept over, but before it reached the front, it was intercepted by an invisible force with a whoosh and rushed to the upper left. Yixian turned his head to look. All of the boundless qi and blood had already turned into a blood-colored ball, about 3,000 feet in size, floating in front of the giant void tortoise's nose. Compared to its terrifying size, it was simply insignificant. However, Yixian was scared out of his wits. With his current cultivation level and strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to snatch something from a powerful peak supreme being. Right now, what he was most worried about was that the giant void tortoise would not say anything and first take the ball that was already in front of his nose. He directly swallowed the 1,000-meter-long blood orb. Then he would argue with Yixian. If that really happened, Yixian would probably be so angry that he would vomit blood on the spot. Damn it, shut up immediately. Seeing this scene, Yixian immediately became anxious again and flew into a rage. If you dare to swallow it, I will break off all relations with you. Break off all relations? I don't seem to be very close to you, right? The voice of the void tortoise's divine sense rang out. It was still muffled, but there was a hint of ridicule in it. Besides, you are only in the primordial era, and you seem to have been forcefully raised by some kind of bloodline ability. Once you remove the ability, your true cultivation, you should only be a universe supreme being. This is all of the qi and blood of a third-stage primordial era supreme being. Can you swallow it? Aren't you afraid of exploding and dying? What do you know? It would have been better if he didn't mention this, but Yixian immediately became angry. Swallowing it directly is simply a waste, a reckless waste of God's gift. I want to refine it into supreme blood essence and gather 5 of them. In the future, I will deduce the perfect formula for the level 30 Heavenly Path Treasure Pill. By then I will be able to refine a Heavenly Path Treasure Pill. Heavenly Path Treasure Pill? What is that? Is there such a thing? I have lived since the primordial era until now. Why haven't I heard of it before? The giant void tortoise was stunned, and suspicion appeared in its eyes. It sized up Yixian and said playfully, "Not bad, you brat. Now you have learned how to swindle others without batting an eyelid. You even managed to swindle me." Pooh! Yixian almost vomited blood on the spot. He was so angry that he snorted. After rolling his eyes, he directly took out a few treasured pills of different grades from his undying world. A level 25 Supreme Treasure Pill, a level 26 Eternity Treasure Pill, and a level 27 Supreme Treasure Pill. Of course, the Supreme here referred to the Supreme Beings of the universe and not the Supreme Primordial Era. As for the level 28 Supreme Elixir Pill, although he had already deduced the perfect pill formula and had enough sovereign blood essence in his hands, he hadn't had time to refine it yet, so he couldn't take it out even if he wanted to. However, these 3 treasured pills of different grades were enough to explain the problem. "This is a night pill," said Luo Feng. "It can help an Emperor level 9 pinnacle to become a Universe Knight within a few days." "This is the Eternity Lord Treasure Pill," said Luo Feng. "It can help a Universe Knight become a Universe Master within a few days." As for the last one, it's a Supreme Treasure Pill. It can allow an undying Emperor to become a Universe Supreme within a few days. As he spoke, Yixian raised his hand and pointed at the 3 treasured pills floating in front of him. When he finished, he put them away with a flip of his hand. Then he continued, "As for the Supreme Being pellet that can help a Pinnacle Level 9 Universe Supreme become a Supreme Being in the Primordial Era in a short time, I've just finished collecting the materials, and I'm going to start refining it right away. The blood bead in front of your nose is an important material for refining the Heavenly Path Pellet in the future. That's a Heavenly Path Pellet which can help a Pinnacle Primordial Supreme like you reach the Heavenly Path Pellet in a short time, and it's as good as the Primordial Heavenly Path Pellet. You can become a Heavenly Path Treasure Pill with the same eyes. The aura of these 3 treasured pills is correct. They do have the effect you said." Seeing the 3 treasured pills of different grades, the giant void turtle's eyes became serious for the first time. He sized up Yixian again and finally asked in a muffled voice, "Boy, are you sure you can refine the Heavenly Path Treasure Pill?" "I can refine the Supreme Treasure Pill at any time. After the Supreme Treasure Pill, it's the Supreme Treasure Pill. The perfect formula isn't complete yet, but it's almost done. After the Supreme Treasure Pill, it's the Heavenly Path Treasure Pill. I have to deduce the perfect formula and collect the materials before I can refine it. Each Heavenly Path Treasure Pill requires 5 Supreme Blood Essences, which are the blood and energy formed by the explosion of the body of Primordial Supreme. The blood essences. If I don't lack Supreme Blood Essences, I should be able to deduce the perfect formula of the Heavenly Path Treasure Pill in 3 years. Chapter 4608. I didn't expect you to have the ability to refine a Heavenly Tao Treasure Pill. His eyes flickered with rays of light as the void tortoise sized Yixian up. Can 5 primordial sovereigns refine a single Heavenly Tao Treasure Pill? This is simply too profitable. If I were to devour the flesh and blood of the primordial supremes to evolve, I'm afraid I would need at least 1,000 primordial supremes. Only Qianzun has this possibility. Compared to you, he's truly too much of a wastrel." Speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something and glared at Yixian. "Brat, why didn't you come out earlier? I just swallowed one not long ago." It's not easy to kill the primordial supremes. The key is that they're all hiding. It's hard to find them. Just because you came out a little slower, you wasted a supreme blood essence. Pfft. This time, Yixian was really angry to the point of spitting out blood. He had thought that this giant tortoise was a little shameless, but now it seemed that it was more than a little shameless. It was simply too shameless. Just a moment ago, he was fighting with him for the blood bead and almost swallowed it in one gulp. Now that he heard that he could refine the Heavenly Path Treasure Pill, He immediately changed his tone and even blamed him. A ninth-order Desolation Supreme, a supreme existence who had lived since the ancient Desolation era to the present, was actually so shameless. No one could be this shameless. Xiao. Brat, take this. This is the first supreme blood essence that I'm leaving with you. There are still 4 left. I'll think of a way to get enough. Once you've gathered enough, you can refine the Heavenly Path treasure pill for me as soon as possible. With a faint sound of breaking air, the blood bead that was originally hanging at the tip of the Void Tortoise's nose shot towards Yixian. At the same time, the voice of the Void Giant Tortoise's divine sense rang out. It leaped and was about to shoot into the distance. Hey, what do you mean by you're leaving it with me? Didn't we agree just now that everyone has a share? You've already swallowed one, so this one is mine. As he spoke, Yixian hurriedly took action. He collected the blood beads and sent them into the flame pool at the bottom of the central region volcano in the Shinong Cauldron. He began the blood essence refinement. Then, he relaxed and said confidently, remember, to refine a Heavenly Path treasure pill, you need at least 5 pieces of blood essence of the Supreme Master as the main ingredient. Moreover, you also need some other supplementary ingredients. This Star Lord can't give you these for free. Yes, there are benefits to alchemy, right? That's why this Star Lord will help you get at least 9 more sovereign blood essences. Otherwise, don't mention it again. Roar. You damned brat, you actually dare to blackmail me? In the distance, the Void Tortoise let out a low roar, but it didn't turn around. Its enormous figure moved at an extremely fast speed, and in the blink of an eye, it had already disappeared at the end of their line of sight. Who would have thought that it would end like this? Taking a deep breath and recalling the desperate situation of life and death, Yixian sighed with emotion. After calming himself down, he quickly recalled the 11 supreme experts of the primordial era, who had intercepted him earlier. His eyes instantly shone with a cold light. Humph, I didn't expect to be able to fulfill the words I said before so quickly. However, before I go back to take revenge, I still have to make another breakthrough in my cultivation. The previous breakthrough wasn't my limit, and there's still the possibility of another breakthrough. Just now, when I decided to abandon everything and rush out of the cauldron, my mental state improved once more. Thus, the breakthrough this time is already set in stone. There's no doubt about it. Swish. After he finished speaking, Yixian no longer hesitated. With a flash of his body, he directly arrived at the mouth of the Shinong Cauldron that was filled with 9-colored fog. From there, he entered the space within the cauldron, hovered above the central region volcano, and sat down cross-legged. Swish, swish, swish. With a wave of his hand, along with a faint sound of breaking through the air, rays of light shot out and hovered in front of Yixian. These were the cultivation resources that he had taken out from the undying world in his body to carry out this breakthrough. Immediately after, he activated the domain of the Shinong Cauldron at the first possible moment, compressing all the cultivation resources to the size of a nascent fist, and swallowing them into his stomach with a wave of his hand. Walala! As the nascent fist ball entered his mouth, the sound of chains rattling could be heard from Yixian's body. All the resources instantly transformed into a majestic river of energy. And this time, the shackles that appeared were the same as before. There was only one. This was expected, so Yixian did not pay attention to it. He immediately focused and activated the river of energy that had just formed in his body with all his strength. He began to circulate it in his meridians again and again. Perhaps it was because of the sublimation of his state of mind. The breakthrough this time did not encounter any obstacles. In just 2 days, the river of energy that had formed in Yixian's body was completely refined. And as the river of energy completely disappeared after each circulation, it merged into Yixian's body and soul. Next, he only needed to attack once, and the shackles that appeared this time broke. When the shackles completely broke, the anticipated system notification rang in Yixian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. 4th Order Universe Supreme. Ding! Congratulations to host for a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. 4th Order Universe Supreme. 4th Order Universe Supreme. This was the middle stage of this realm. During the previous breakthrough, Yixian's original body's cultivation level had reached 3rd Order Universe Supreme. If he activated the power of the ancient Devil Ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to advance to Fourth Order Universe Supreme. If he activated the 9 transformations of the Devil Ape and reached the 9th transformation, his battle power would immediately rise to Fourth Order Universe Supreme. In addition to the majestic blood energy in his body, his actual battle power would be comparable to a Fifth Order Universe Supreme. And this time, after another successful breakthrough,